Good evening. I now show it as 7:00 PM. I'd like to bring the Common Council meeting to order. I show it's Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. Note that notices were provided. Call to order and roll call. If our city clerk could go ahead and do that.
Mayor Kim Smith.
Here.
Tom Smith,
Here.
Dan Stevens,
Present.
Stephen Knott,
Present.
Leanne Stokes. Here. Larry Jurassic,
Present.
Diane Wolf.
Here. Just for the record, Mayor Kim is available online. But for this evening, I will be presiding as council president. I will maintain and retain all voting rights as a council member. Mayor Kim certainly may give any input that she would like to this evening under discussions and such. And she does retain her voting right in case there is, if she chooses to break a tie, if there is a tie this evening. So we'll move on to the printed agenda, Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would rise, please. Number 3, rules of the City of Onalaska Common Council and its subcommittees, harassment-free forum. Do we have a copy of those? I apologize, I forgot to ask for them before. Thank you. City council and subcommittee meetings shall be conducted in a courteous manner. Citizens, council, and committee members shall be allowed to state their positions in an atmosphere free of slander, obscene remarks, or threats of violence. Sufficient warnings may be given by the sergeant at arms or chair at any time during the remarks, and in the event that any individual shall violate the rules of decorum as set forth, such person may then be cut off from comment or debate. Public input limited to 3 minutes per individual. If there is anyone in attendance who would like to give input at this time, they may do so. Please state your first and last name, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Right. Your first and last name and your home address. Thank you.
My name is Kathleen Frost. I live at 1711 Hickory Street, and I have come to talk to you about the City Hall hours. So one thing that you should know about me is I'm one of those people that doesn't like to deal with machines. So if I go to the bank, I want to actually deal with a teller. I don't want to go to the ATM because then it doesn't like the way I folded my bills, and I have to keep taking them out and refolding them, or I think I put in $40 and it says you put in $20 and I'm wondering if it's going to spit 40 back out or if it's got my extra $20. Or if I call the credit card company, I don't want to talk to the automated machine where it tries to guess what I'm saying. I want to actually get a human being. So I was distressed when the City Hall hours were cut at the beginning of the year. I don't go in often, it's true, but I do come in, I pay my water bill, I register my dogs. If there's something they need, I'd like to be there so that they have it. I don't want to just drop it in the mail and hope for the best. I work in West Salem, so I work from 8 until 4:30. When the hours are 8 until 4, when the hours are from 8 until 5, if I leave my work at 4:30 and I don't hit bad traffic, I can be here at 4:50 or 4:55. I can get my job done with the clerks and I can be out. If the City Hall hours are only open until 4, then I have to leave an hour early and then hope that there's no traffic and be here at 3:50 or 3:55. Now, the next thought you may have is, why don't I come at 8 o'clock in the morning? And that's a fair thought, but I have a child that goes to Eagle Bluff who views mornings with as much suspicion as I do. And so every morning getting out with everybody's hair brushed and deodorant on and food in your belly and in your backpack is a production. So I get her dropped off. I'm on the way to West Salem. If I have to turn around and come back to City Hall, I'm turning back, I'm going this opposite way. I'm probably going to be an hour late to work anyway. Now, I understand that there are valid reasons for changing the city hall hours. But for somebody who likes to deal with people and not with machines, I'm asking you to please consider extending some of the hours so that I can deal with a person and not a computer interface or hope that things get through the mail when they're supposed to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to give public input at this time? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Joyce Stively and I live at 711 Pleasant Court. And I am here representing the Onalaska Art Keepers Group. And I just wanted to say a couple things quickly about what our motivation is with the Onalaska Art Keepers, because I know we have the Rockin' Sunfish coming up later on in the agenda. If you're not familiar with the group, I'd ask you to join us. It's not very expensive. And our whole motivation really is to bring some culture, history, and just some fun and vibrancy to our community. I think no one would dispel that the sculpture, although that wasn't totally the Oak Group, but that the sculpture has been a wonderful addition to our city. Most of you are familiar with the pop-up artwork we did all over the city. Then we did the Pumpkin and a Pine event 2 years now in a row at Dash Park. If you are not familiar with the history plaque down at that Great River Landing, it was quite a coup that we were able to even pull that project off and got the endorsement of the John Denver Foundation to go ahead with the music from his song to even make the plaque. So we were very lucky in that. So I think we've had some great backing. And up to this point, I've asked the city for no money or anything else other than we'd like to make our city a more fun and vibrant place. So we are going to be here tonight to talk about the Rockin' Sunfish addition to Dash Park. I think up to this point, I don't think anyone would dispute that we haven't followed all the rules. We've come to city council with everything we tried to do, Park and Rec, and we plan to continue to do that. I did want to send read one little quote because I don't know if there'll be time later. But when we did start this conversation about the Rockin' Sunfish, I had heard somebody said, well, maybe Dash Park doesn't want them. Maybe the restaurant would feel it'd be too noisy or something. So I did approach Matt Boschko, who owns David Ray's, and that's where the Sunfish would be near. And I said to him, this is what we're proposing. What do you think? And I just want to read to you what he said. You may have gotten this in an email. He said, I wanted to send you an email letting you know that I think it's a great idea adding the Sunfish, Rocking Sunfish to Dash Park. I feel that they will add more fun and laughter to the park, which is always a good thing in my opinion. Great idea and best of luck, Matt Boschka. So we're not trying to push things through quickly. We're trying to work with the city and hope that you'll listen to us when we get to I think it's number 12 on the agenda, talking about the Rockin' Sunfish. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joyce. Anyone else who would like to give public input at this time? Is anyone online besides Mayor Kim?
Hi, Kathy Edwards, 616 8th Avenue North. And I just wanted to add a couple of words about the Rocking Sunfish. It's going to be a fun thing for people to do their selfies and to do a lot of photography. I think it's always fun for visitors to come in and see something different and something their kids can participate with, and adults. It's fun how adults like to play. And I think it is going to be a good opportunity for more positive things to come from this on social media and other platforms like that. So thank you for considering it.
Thank you. Any other public input at this time? Second call for public input. Third and final call. I'll go ahead and close public input. I'll go ahead and go to a report from the mayor. A, recognition of police officer Cooper Zumock on successful completion of his probationary period. Chief.
Thank you, Council President. This is, in our world, this is a kind of a major milestone, completing probation. So I just want to take a few moments to recognize Cooper for making that milestone and making it with flying colors. He's been a great addition to our department, and we're proud to have him in our department and serving the city. So I don't think he could be here tonight, but I just wanted to recognize him. So
And thank you. And if I may add also, I echo your sentiments. I had the honor and privilege of doing a ride along with him earlier this year, and it was very enjoyable, and he's a very fine young man. So thank you. Congratulations to him and the police department. And item B, proclamation and recognition of Craig Bretzbrecher and his service to the city. Mayor Kim Smith has issued a proclamation, and Mayor, you're online. Would you like to read that this evening?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Whereas Craig Breitsprecher lived and worked many years in the city of Onalaska, and whereas Craig was appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals in April of 2009 and the Plan Commission later that year. And whereas while Craig served, he gained a reputation for his commitment to public safety, to being prepared, and attention to detail, which had a positive impact on the development of our city. And whereas on this day, the people of Onalaska would like to honor Craig for his commitment and dedication to our community. And now therefore, I, Kim Smith, Mayor of Onalaska, on behalf of the citizens, do recognize that Craig Breitsprecher has made a significant contribution to the quality of life in the city of Onalaska. And I urge all citizens to recognize and applaud the citizenship of this outstanding gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And if I may add, I had the honor and privilege of also serving with Craig Bretzbrecher. Many years I chaired alongside with him on Board of Zoning Appeals, and he always sat right here. This was his seat next to me for many, many, many years. So I have very fond memories of him. And then, of course, he came with great credentials. I believe he came from, was it Duluth where he served? I think it was on Plan Commission, right? Rochester, I knew it was Minnesota, thank you, Rochester. And so when he came here, he came on Board of Zoning Appeals, and then I think later that same year, then he was appointed to Plan Commission and served until his death. So Tom Smith.
I'd like to just say the same thing. I worked with Craig on Planning Commission for the last 4 years prior to his passing, and very professional, very knowledgeable, and he brought a lot to the Planning Commission and to the city of Onalaska. So my hat's off to him. He was a great citizen and enjoyed working with him.
So in the audience this evening, I'd also like to recognize, I know La Crosse County Supervisor, District 16, Dan Ferris is in the audience with some of Craig's family this evening. His daughter Trish and his granddaughter Madeline is in the audience. And I do have a formal proclamation that I would like to give to you at the podium, if you would. Thank you again for coming in this evening. It was recommended by our city administrator, if I have a council or if I have a general consensus, if we could go right to 12A, the presentation by Meter on branding overview and taglines. So they don't need to stay for the evening, if that's all right with council members. Thank you. Let's go right to 12A, please. Yes, sir. Possibly, sure. Let's take care of 12A, but that is a good suggestion. So 12A, presentation by Meter on branding overview and taglines. Good evening, welcome tonight.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Justin Garvey from Meter. I'm joined here with Kirsten, also from Meter. So is the presentation?
Minute, I'm gonna see what I can do.
Okay. So where we're at in the process is we talked last time we were here about logos a little bit. One of the other first steps of this process is establishing a tagline. So hopefully we can get that pulled up in a second, but kind of an overview of where this process as a whole. We have had some questions about whether we are rebranding the city of Onalaska versus actually expanding the brand. So part of this isn't in the presentation, but I can speak to it, that we aren't rebranding the city, but instead we're creating new elements that do not yet exist. So maybe are we? Maybe I'll see if I can get that up a little easier with visuals. I have it on flash drive.
I should just give me 1 second. You sent it to me or did Chris?
Just want to confirm that everyone did get their packet in their mailboxes, correct? On council. Okay.
Did send it to you, dear. I just resent it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So as an overview of where we're at in the process, the city of Onalaska currently does have a few elements to their brand. And like I mentioned, we are not replacing these elements, but instead we're building out the entire brand for the city of Onalaska. So currently there is a seal, which you see there on the left, which is often right now utilized as a logo and an official seal. The sunfish, and then there is a loose association with the color purple. It is not officially in a color palette, but it is utilized by many, and there is an association with that color purple. So these are really the elements that exist now. We are not going in a different direction. We're not getting rid of any of these elements, but there is a lot of other things that are needed when building out a brand. You want to go to the next slide. So anytime brand communication is created for a city or any other brand, imagine you're building a website and you need to make decisions about what color that website would be, what type of images would appear on that website. There is a guide that usually lays the groundwork or makes those decisions for you so that everything looks consistent and you're creating a consistent perception of your brand. Right now, those things just don't exist. So we're not rebranding anything. Like I said, we're not getting rid of anything that exists. It's just that they don't exist right now. So we have heard some comments that are like, well, why do we need a new brand? We're not really creating a new brand. We're building out a brand. We're building the full brand, and we're utilizing those things that exist and building on the things that are strong with your brand, but just need the complete package, need colors. So when you design a new website, that it can be more than gray and black. And there can be a photo strategy that decides or makes decisions towards what type of images you're showing and how you can really bring the brand of Onalaska to life for somebody who's never been here. So we are going to talk about taglines today and show you our recommended tagline and then some of the other options that we discussed with the group. So we can go to the next slide. So our recommended tagline concept, it's actually a little bit different than some taglines because it has different variations to it. So I'll show you what that means in a second. This is one of the primary versions, live vibrantly, live Anna. So we are recommending that we utilize the abbreviated word version of Onalaska as a more informal, high energy, friendly way to refer to Onalaska because it does carry a lot of personality with it. And it is recognized by people in the community, and it brings some of that personality into the brand and really reflects that to people who are coming into the community and learning about Onalaska. But what we mean when we say that it has different variations to it, you can go to the next slide. So the first two words in the tagline, live vibrantly, that is one variation of this tagline concept. The live Anna would always appear. So go ahead and go to the next slide and we can show you what that means. So different variations that could be used for different departments of the city, different activities available in the city, or for different purposes that require a different combination of words, really, making this a very flexible and functional tagline system, really is what we would call it. So one of the examples there, live active, live Anna for Parks and Recreation, make your mark, live Anna for a community service organization. You can go to the next slide. Live out loud, live Anna for an event. Find balance, live Anna. Go to the next one. Make your move, live Anna. Discover something new, live Anna. So really, we're creating a lot of associations with Onalaska and with the abbreviated version of the word Onalaska. So Anna. So build traditions, live Anna. Make a splash, live Anna. So bringing a lot of you can flip back to those examples. So really bringing a lot to that word and bringing it into the brand. We do feel like it's a great reflection of the city and the personality of the city. We can talk about some of the options that we discussed with the group and that we brought to the group. But I don't know if there's any comments about this right away before we talk about some of those.
Amanda?
I was just going to throw in that when it came to kind of the logos, I think that as a group, we do have an internal group that does kind of review these. And while we liked certain parts of the logo concepts, I don't know that we were particularly passionate about one. But as a group, we collectively very much support Live Anna. We feel like it provides a lot of flexibility, as you've seen across multiple departments and throughout the community. And was something that I think kind of resonated with all of us, that we feel like, we are on Alaska, and this really reflects that.
Alder Smith?
And I'd like to say the same thing that as Amanda said, is I was on the initial committee here too on this, and I think the Live Onalaska just has a youthful, vibrant, and when we did our community survey, we have a lot of young folks in this community. We have a lot of seniors too. We have a good mixture of people, but it's a very active community, very, very full of lots of things going on. And we'd like to promote that. And Live Anna has it's a modern thing. For some of us are older people, it's a little different. But even before I retired, people from other parts of our country that came to visit us, they'd always say, how's everything in Anna? And Anna is very familiar around here. And a lot of the young kids in the high school and some of the college students that I've talked to, they love the idea of Anna. It just has a nice, cool slang to it. But everyone knows it's Onalaska if they're from around here. So I support it because I really think it has a fresh look to the Onalaska focus. And yet I like live vibrantly because it's kind of like, bold, but then with the tagline. But I like the tagline flexibility that it can be used in multiple areas. So it's something I just thought really fits our community. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Tom. Any other electeds?
Diane,
Alder-
I would say something if I don't want to interrupt though.
Oh, go right ahead, Mayor Kim.
Sorry, it's so hard to tell when you're online. I want to say too that when they brought this up, at first I was kind of like, what? And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Anna is something that it's not a new thing. It already exists. And, I think we didn't see it for it being right at our feet. And I just really want to commend the group that we have working on this for pulling that out of all the massive information that they had, to recognize the fact that we do commonly refer to ourselves as Anna. And I especially liked the Live Vibrantly, Live Anna, which I think is what he's going to next. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. It has a ring. We already do this. So I think as far as creating a tagline, I think they did a great job, and I really like this.
Thank you, Mayor. Alder Stevens and then Not.
So I know at the last meeting that we were looking at logos, they pulled out some nuggets, and I remember like hub was one of them, and I didn't really agree that Onalaska was a hub, but vibrancy, I think, is a descriptor that is much more suitable, and it's something that I think that we should strive for, and we should strive to be more vibrant. So I like the direction. I think that's a vast improvement. I just had a sidebar conversation before the meeting started with Alder Stokes there, and I'm always like an Onalaska guy. I don't think I've ever said Anna before, but she said, well, you're not from here. I moved here in 2007. And so that could be part of it. I can live with that, but anyway, so that's a nice improvement.
Alder Not.
I love it. More I think about it, it's reminiscent of some of the more successful and recognizable brands that are out there. You know, the first one that comes to mind is the most recognized brand in the entire world, which is Coca-Cola, for instance. They have a set font, which we have here. It's repetitive no matter what it is we're doing. They have a set color scheme. No matter what they do throughout the ages as they change, or bringing in the polar bears, what have you, they still have certain elements that continue to go throughout it all. And so I see that in this, and I love it. And it's simple. It's 3 syllables, Live Ona. And I think that this is going in the right direction, 100%.
Thank you. Alder Stokes and then Jurassic.
Thank you. When I first read the Live Vibrantly, Live Anna, at first I thought, but then I went and I did some research as what entails a vibrant neighborhood. And there were 3 elements that my research brought me. It says the essential elements of a vibrant neighborhood: distinct architecture resulting in a strong sense of place, a functional place of life, work, and play, and a community committed to supporting each other. And I like all of those elements, and I think all of those elements are in Onalaska. So I think it's a great start. Thank you.
And on a side note, that does not surprise me that you did that. But I have to say that just put the cherry on the top for me, just those descriptives. Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, I got this packet this afternoon and read through it, and it really stuck with you, because the thing I like about it is so flexible. All the different departments can add their little cliche in front of it and still say the same thing. I fully support this project.
Thank you, as do I, and I'll go and then Alder Not again. When our city administrator first just said the words to me in the hallway last week, I was just, it just hit me. And I'm either on or off, and it was instantly on. But the interesting thing is this just keeps growing and growing and growing. And just to see this, it's one thing to see it here and see it on your laptop, but then when you have it here, there's just something really warm and enveloping about it. And I think what just really puts me over the top is, you know, when you see all the taglines and you see all the ways that it can be used, in every department. I'd like to know I won't put him on the spot, what the police department may be, what he could, but I'm sure there could be really interesting ones. But I think you knocked it out of the park on this one. And I think by your comments this evening, I think you've got a ton of support. Thank you, Alder Not.
Yeah, real briefly as a follow-up to my original comments. When we were discussing the logo in a past meeting, one of my comments that I had a concern is how do we bring recognizing that family is the #1 piece that's mentioned in our own mission statement, that family needs to be in there somehow. When I look at the tagline, when I look at the photography scheme, it just screams family to me across the board. This is just a great thing. I love what I'm seeing here. So.
Thank you, Alderman, Amanda.
So I don't know that we need a motion or anything. We just kind of wanted, a head nod that this is the direction that you're comfortable moving. We are looking at bringing back logo options in January and continuing to, as Justin described, kind of work to that full brand palette.
Got my head nod,
Pardon?
got my head nod.
Yes. Do we have consensus that we are?
I just think the
Alderson?
logo, but now that we have kind of the tagline and theme, it'd be nice to see how it matches with the logo.
Yeah. Bringing it all together.
Good luck. Good luck on that one. I don't know.
This is a
if
little
you
easier.
prefer that. Good luck, but no, I
Nice
think
job.
yeah, very good.
Really good job.
Yeah, really, really good job. So
Thank you.
thank you for coming tonight. Very much appreciated. I think you have a double, triple stamp of approval in the audience when you have the art community clapping. So I think that's a good sign. If we could very briefly, because I don't think we're going to have a problem, if we could just knock off the consent agenda and then Alder Stevens recommended, since we do have people in the audience, if we could continue with 12, but if we could just knock off the biggest portion of our agenda this evening. Let me go ahead and go back to the first page of the agenda. Recommendations for approval and or possible action from the following committees, commissions, boards, officials. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests removal, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the order of business and the non-consent agenda. So item six is consent agenda six is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Send to approve.
Second,
Motion by Alder Smith, second by Alder Jurassic to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. So we are up to the non-consent, but if everyone is in agreement, let's jump to 12B. Amanda, do you want to take 12B? I guess 12B and 12C.
Yeah, so 12B is discussion on policy and procedure for public art. And so Dan and Katie and I have had some conversation related to this. We've also looked at policies across cities, not just in Wisconsin, but also across the country. And so we came up with kind of a list of fundamental questions that we think that we as a city need to answer. And so our recommendation is that we should essentially either codify or create a policy to sort of address public art in public places. This would be very similar to what we currently have. I think Katie had included a reference to the mural ordinance as well in this. And so you can see we do address murals, but we don't address any other kind of art in our ordinances. And so our recommendation would be that city staff would inventory places, both interior and exterior. So parks, public land, city buildings, retention ponds, well stations, basically anywhere we think that art could be installed. We would bring that inventory back to council and they could decide which locations they felt were desirable or not desirable for art. Then we could look at what kind of art does the city want to showcase? Do we want standalone art, which would be like your sculptures, your murals, statues? Do we want interactive art, which would be more like the rocking sunfish? And then also integrated art, where it might be part of a building's facade, part of the landscape, benches and things like that. Other questions that we think we should consider would be, are there durations of time that art is allowed? Do we only want permanent art installations? Are we open to temporary art installations? If we take on temporary art installations, are we taking them on loan? Or would we prefer to own all of the art? Funding, does the city want to fund art installations, whether permanent or temporary, or are we looking at a donation only system? And then going to kind of that review committee idea. So we currently have an ordinance, a mural review team, which is comprised of members of planning, inspection, attorney, and public recreation. So within that, we have specific design standards in which all murals have to follow, as well as certain prohibited content. That mural review team would review any proposed murals for compliance with those standards. And then any special exception to those standards would have to be reviewed by the Plan Commission and ultimately council as the appeal body. Assuming that a mural met those standards, it would be approved. So staff's recommendation, as I kind of alluded to at the beginning, is that we think it would make the most sense to establish permanent criteria. So we're not considering these on a case-by-case basis. So expand the current ordinance, not to just to include murals, but also to include all types of art installation. And then create certain design criteria, insurance requirements, safety requirements. I mean, as we found, there's a lot more to think about in the installation of some of this art. We had to close the road to install the one at the Great River Landing. We had to look at temporary insurance while it was being installed. We had to work with them on kind of a few things. And I think we all agree it turned out very well, but just it was one of those things that we had never done before. And so it was a bit of a learning curve. And so that's kind of the recommendation before you today from staff's point of view would be to develop this more formal policy and ordinance. And so if we want to tackle all these questions tonight, we can. If we want to tackle them at a special meeting, we can do that. Or if you want to say, no, you don't want a policy and you just want to do this on a one-by-one basis, we can do that as well.
What was the last one?
If you just want to say no and that you'd rather address them on a one-by-one basis, you can do that as well. So,
Thank you. Alder Nat?
Yeah, so personally, I think it's very smart to have a policy where it establishes standards that the citizens can understand. And I really like what I see. I do have one recommendation to include in the future as you move on with this, if that's the decision of the board. And that's to under where it's does the city of Onalaska want art in public places? If so, then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under 4, including what are the hidden costs? So it's not just installing, it's maintaining. I know we've had discussions on this board on certain items that have been donated to the parks, for instance, of now maybe we need to have security cameras. And along with that, of course, comes, well, if there's security cameras, if something happens, we have to have staff time and staff members to review the footage, tag it, and download it. So, I mean, there's no such thing as free, is the bottom line. We've had some really great organizations who like to donate things to the city, but it's never free. And that's what I want to identify when we do this too, is what are the long-term costs?
Thank you. Anyone else? Alder Stevens?
I had assisted the city attorney and the city planner and writing the mural ordinance. And I'd like to point out that with the committee, I just want to stress that was not to critique the art. We don't like the color. We, like that should be blue, or, could you just do a bowl of fruit or something like that? I mean, that's not the point. It was more to kind of filter out things that would be, offensive, pornographic, advertising, things that would not be appropriate and in that element of art. So I assume that if this were to follow suit with the mural ordinance, that the committee would have the same limitations on their powers.
correct.
So we don't want to handcuff the artists, but still, if it's being put up in the city, it has to be appropriate for the city. So.
So what are the wishes of the council?
I'd like to see the staff continue to move this forward.
So not to put words in your mouth, so are you looking at the city staff recommendation of the memo dated December 6th, the 1 through 3, plus your additional 4 for about the hidden possible costs?
Well, I think that my understanding is that they're looking for guidance of, do we want to continue to move this forward? I don't know that this is a final product yet.
No, I mean, so I think what we're looking for tonight is feedback. If you want to move this forward, I think what we would do is we would start working on the inventory to present at a future council meeting. And then we likely would take some of the information that we want feedback on and put it together in a survey that we would send out to council.
Alder Smith?
I like that idea too, is that you guys continue to flush this out, then do a survey and give that so that we can give feedback to them as you evolve into this new policy, but I think it really makes sense to follow the staff recommendations in my opinion.
So are you looking for a motion tonight or just kind of some consensus, some direction?
I think a motion would be helpful just to have it on the record.
I'll make a motion that the staff, under the guidance of the city administrator, continue to develop a policy and procedures for public art for the city that can be presented for further discussion at a later time.
I'll second
Second
it.
it.
So motion by Alder Knott, second by Alder Stokes. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
So there were several questions here. Are we, do we want to take a stand or position on any of them? Like, do we want to restrict interactive standalone or integrated art? I mean, I think maybe staff would appreciate some guidance. I would suggest everything should be on the table. The only real question is do you want public funding to go to art or not? That would be the change from the norm. As it stands right now, I'm not aware of any time that the city has used taxpayer funds to fund this, as this has all been community driven. So that's a discussion that could be had, and that would be different. But I don't think that we should try to restrict any types of art. I mean, they still have a committee in place that could say if this does not fit, it's not the right size or scope for, where it wants to be placed, that we have an element in place that can regulate that. And I assume that would be expanded as stated in recommendation number, one of them. So I guess rather than just kind of kick it back to staff, we should give them some guidance on, yes, we like these, or no, we don't. Do you want physical art? Do we want interactive art? I would say yes to everything.
That she's been raising her hand. No.
I agree with Dan. I think that we should make funding stay as donation only. Have it in place right now, and I think it would be better to keep it as a donation only.
I'm not sure that I stated that was. In the past, we've been donation only. I said that's a new discussion.
Right.
So.
But I would prefer it to stay as donation.
Thank you. Alder Knott.
Well, again, I don't want to put words in the staff who's already been working on this, but I think they're just wanting to know if they should continue to move forward with more detailed recommendations for us to discuss later, which would mean everything's open. If we were to go question by question, we're going to start restricting now, and I don't know that we're ready to do that yet. We don't have all the information available on what they're thinking, so.
Amanda.
Yeah, so our initial kind of thought process was that if we're going to proceed with this, we would start working on the inventory, and then we would probably develop a bit more comprehensive of a survey that would ask some of these questions and then other questions kind of in more detail. And then once we have kind of compiled that information, we'd bring it back to council and then really have a discussion related to those specific factors then.
And that was the intent of my motion.
And that's how I understood it. So, because right now we're not saying no to anything. We're not taking anything off the table. So everything that's on this, it's still on the table, which I think is what Alder Stevens wants to make sure that everything is still on the table.
Yeah.
And that's what I would support too. Alder Knott.
And just one comment, it's more of a reiteration. Again, was just mentioned about no costs to the city. Again, just a reminder, that's why I want to identify hidden costs, because there's always a cost to the city. It may be a small or low cost, but there is always a cost to the city, even if it's donated. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion or any further questions of staff as far as progress? So everyone's good with the motion as stated, ready to vote? All those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then Amanda, item 12C.
Yes, so that was tabled back in October. It was meant to be on the November agenda. However, we didn't have any additional information, so we did not place it on the November agenda. We did receive an email from Joyce Stively, kind of recapping the project and going into a little bit more detail. And so we did think it was appropriate to put it back on the agenda for December. I don't know if we want to let Joyce speak at this time or but this is that request for the rocking horses in Dash Park. And so I think, you know, the question before you tonight is how do you want to proceed with this? Is it something where we would want to hold off on this until we get further along in a policy and procedure as it relates to public art? Or do you want to address this as a standalone project?
Council? Alder Stevens?
We have people here from the group in question. I would hate to have them have to come back a second time as we kind of sit on our hands. This isn't the first time it's been to council. It was passed by the Parks Board unanimously. I see no reason why we should at least put off discussion on this.
Thank you. Anyone else from council have any input? Alder Nat?
Well, I know I'd mentioned before when we previously discussed this, I'm just not convinced that Dash Park is the right place for this. I just think it's going to create safety concerns. And I don't know that it fits with the park very well. I'm not opposed to the project. I just don't like the location. So.
Thank you. Alder Smith?
I know when we tabled this the last time, one of the big questions was insurance. Whether we'd have coverage for insurance through the city or individual or somebody would pay for the liability of the insurance for the actual horses and stuff like that. Did we ever get that answered?
The city would have to get a temporary rider to cover these. So going to kind of Stephen's hidden costs, we do insure the statute at the Great River Landing, right? It's a city asset. It's included in our insurance policy. And so, but with this being kind of a temporary installation and also an interactive one, we likely would be looking at having temporary insurance for the time period that it is out there. I have not been able to get a cost estimate on that yet, just with everything else going on. But if that's something you want more information on, I can do that.
But it would be a possibility to have insurance on this project.
I think that would be going back to Alder Nat's previous motion that passed. That would be a good number to have at the time, like when it comes back to us, the next phase. Alder Jurassic.
Wouldn't this be covered under the same thing, swing set or anything else in any of the other parks?
Why? Because it's not a permanent fixture. So we get temporary insurance all the time. I mean, so when we do certain events at the Omni Center, we get a temporary rider.
Alder Stevens?
I just want to jump back a couple conversations, and we talked about everybody was on board with, we want to be a vibrant community. Like, you know, that's great. That's on Alaska. So here's a chance to really embrace that. I mean, we can say we're going to be vibrant, or we can actually be vibrant. And this is one of those things. And I guess I want to maybe refer back to Alder Knott's point when discussing the location. I'd have maybe two counterpoints. The first, and I wanted to share, there was former Mayor Chilson when he has texted from, he's by the Chesapeake in Virginia. And when the Great River Landing came out, I mean, it was part of the plan for what they wanted the downtown to be. They wanted it to be a vibrant community. They want it to be where people go for restaurants and, well, you know, live, work, and play with the family. And that's you know what Meter just brought tonight, and everybody was all yeah, we love that. That's who we are. So I'd be hesitant to kind of step away from that. I can read Joe's text as, please tell the council that this is the next step in developing the waterfront that will draw more people to work, play, and live in Unalaska. That's very much aligned with what we talked about earlier today. Whether it's the right location or not, and I kind of wanted to talk about this last time when I recused myself, but really didn't have the ability to speak anymore, is has anybody asked the planner if this is the right location or not? I mean, this is a person who is the most professional in our city on what is the right place to put things. So I'm wondering if Katie Aspenson would be willing to share thoughts on what the Rocking Fish might be, or if Dash Park is a good place or absolutely not a good place for this.
Thank you. I appreciate being asked for input. So typically, economic development and our city moving forward and public art, they're completely tied together. Whether or not this is the exact place to put it, I would look to the business owner who said that he would be in supportive of it. So the whole point of public art, especially in the planning world, is it's very much become more and more talked about. It's an opportunity to ask citizens to interact with the built world in a fun way that gets people to go to an area. It gets people to interact. They come down, they spend time, they tend to spend money, they tend to engage. So while I can't speak to, is this the exact location of where it is, I can tell you that I am wholeheartedly in favor of doing public art and having that be something that can build an image for Onalaska as we're working through this branding cycle. I think it's a wonderful economic development tool that we don't necessarily have today. I think that the art piece that was installed at the Great River Landing has started to already do that. People are talking about that sculpture. People are going to see it. People are spending more time in the Great River Landing. And that brings more people to our downtown. It is an opportunity for people to engage with nature, engage with our park, and then engage with our downtown, which is what we're always looking at doing. So in terms of Dash Park, it's a park that doesn't have a lot going for it in the way of, it doesn't have a playground, it doesn't have a tot lot, but it does have some unique features to it in terms of the pergola and the benches. It also has the downtown sound, which is another great way of bringing people to our area. And also to note, art doesn't just have to be a sculpture. Art can be music, art can be interactive dance, it can be all different kinds of things. So I think that Dash Park is starting to do that. We're starting to see the pumpkin and the pint in there. We're seeing more events being held on there. I also think the Great River Landing is another good location. Those musical instruments are heavily used all the time. It's another opportunity for people to engage through music, through art. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Alder Knott.
So I'm going to be more specific on why I have concerns about Dash Park. It really comes down to safety, as I mentioned, and also liability. So all the uses of Dash Park that Katie just mentioned are all more adult oriented. Dash Park is not a playground, and I would be 100% opposed to making it a playground for the same reason that I have concerns about this interactive art project going in. And that's because it is on the corner of an intersection that is among the busiest in the city. And by putting this project in Dash Park, we're really kind of encouraging kids to come in and play. It's not the right location for that. I'm arguing that it's too dangerous, and that's why I cannot support it in Dash Park. I am not opposed to the project. I want to make that very, very clear. All right. I am opposed to the location.
Thank you, Alder Knott. Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, the reading that I did on it, they were talking about possibly doing 5, 3 kids and 2 adults. That wouldn't fit at Dash Park at all, but across the road, overlooking the water, I can see it go there a lot easier. So, thank you.
Thank you, Alder Jurassic. Alder Stevens.
So I'm kind of curious. I mean, we have, Katie had just mentioned the interactive musical instruments at Great River Landing. Those are designed for kids. Dash Park is at least on the residential side of the highway. Should we tear out the musical equipment at the Great River Landing because it's a danger risk? Why is that more of a danger than the Rocking Sunfish, which would be temporary? If it didn't work, we can pull it out, we can get rid of it, we could relocate it. I want to build a vibrant downtown, and this is an element, that's a component that would be to that end. So I think we need to be consistent. If safety is an issue, then we need to rethink some of our other parks or equipment. Why is one okay for kids and the other is not? They're equidistant from Highway 35.
Thank you. Alder Stokes.
I guess I don't quite understand why we need to make that decision tonight. Why do we need to make the decision that it is going to be done and it is going to be done in Dash Park? Can we just not make the decision that we're okay with the project going forward, and then the place that we're going to put it may be determined at a future date? Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Stokes. If council would let Joyce Dively speak, everyone's fine with that. Joyce, would you like to come forward and have input? I mean, you look like you want to give input. So I want to honor your time and
I want to honor your time too, so I'll make it short. The real reason that we're here tonight is that we're trying to propose in the future these 5 rocking fish, okay? We're going to call them the Rockin' Sunfish. And I do have to say, when we did the logo thing, I thought I can see Play Like a Kid, Live on It, and a picture of an adult like me riding the fish. But what we are really hoping to do tonight, I understood, was we have enough money to build one. We would like to build one, commission an artist to paint it, get it all ready, and in the spring, install it in Dash Park as a sample. At that time, we would then do our continual fundraising to make sure we have enough money. If it goes well, there are no issues, then we would build the rest of them. If it doesn't go well, then I think we decide, okay, it's out of here and that's not going to work. Another reason I think that I don't agree with Mr. Knott is that, number one, it's on the Great River Road. You can't get better advertising than that. How many people come up and down the Great River Road, through our state? If you've ever been to Boston and seen like the iconic, what do they call them, the Swan paddle boats, they have become an icon of Boston. I would like to think that this would become an icon of Onalaska. As far as how long they will last, well, I mean, I've had the urethane company tell me we can, probably get them to last 20 years. They may not last that long. They may last longer, have to be redone. I don't know. As far as future, what we typically have done, like with the sculpture, we did add additional money onto our donation to the city. There was money given so that if it ever needed to be, power washed or whatever, and we would probably do this again with the sunfish, so that there's some maintenance that would have to be done at some point. We understand nothing comes for free. But as far as location, I do think, from my thought, it was that as you drive down the street, you would see these and be attracted to stop at the Great River Landing or at Dash Park, or also just come over and use them, So our real motivation here tonight was to, we have enough money to build, well, we have money, but we would like to build one as a sample. And we would like to have your blessing to say, yes, go ahead and put it in Dash Park in the spring. And for a couple months, we'll raise, the rest of the money. And then after that, if it didn't work, then it's done, okay? If it works, we'll build the other 4 and then move on from there. So we understand that this is something Onalaska's never had before. And, but we think it's an opportunity to bring vibrancy and something iconic to our city, so. And I do have to say, I don't know who it was. Dan would know, we talked at first starting out with just rocking horses. And then one of the guys on your committee said, well, how about a sunfish?
Wayne.
Never thought about that. So that just kind of blossomed into the sunfish. So, so if I can answer any questions, I know I'm taking up too much time here.
Oh, no, you are here
So-
and you may want to just stay there so you're not a Jack in the Box or a Jill in the Box tonight. So just a minute. So Amanda, so back to the original question, do we talk about it tonight? Do we vote on it? Do we whatever? Because staff is going to be looking at this, maybe developing a policy where we were at. I know Alder Stevens thought since people were in the audience, we should discuss it tonight. I wasn't so sure about that because I kind of felt we were getting the sunfish before the cart here because it just seemed like maybe the policy should be developed before we give approval because I don't want them to do anything with the assumption that this is where it's going to go. And then the policy comes out and then we develop a different policy to be fair to them. So what are your thoughts as far as our city administrator / city attorney? Which should come first? Should we be looking at voting on the location or the project, or should we hold up and see how staff comes with your recommendation before we do anything?
I mean, ultimately, that is the decision of the council, but there is the risk that if we approve, this artwork prior to the policy, that it could ultimately not end up in line with the policy, depending on what direction that takes.
That's my concern, because I want to make sure that you're given a fair shake and we don't change the goalposts on you halfway through. So that's my concern, old or not.
So, yeah, just in response to the question from Dan on why is this different? It's different because this is a corner lot that has traffic on 3 sides, heavy traffic on 2, which makes it quite different than Riverside. That's my concern. I'm just really afraid that we're setting up a situation to where kids could be at risk. That's all.
Thank you. So I guess my question to you, Joyce, is that would you, I see your proposal tonight, your original email to Dan Wick as of November 29th regarding what your proposal was. Are you willing to, and this is just me asking, I'm just one of 6, are you willing to propose to build one and location to be determined?
I suppose, sure. We had even talked, Dan and I had talked at one time of putting it in front of City Hall. I just don't think enough people are here to really utilize that, where I think at Dash Park it would be if they decide to put it over at Great River Landing, I think that's okay. I just want it visible. I guess that's one of my things. And I think Dash Park is pretty visible. The other thing at Dash Park that I think, like during the downtown sound, there really isn't anything else to do there. If people do bring their kids, there's really nothing else to do there. And this would be something that would be, a possibility. So.
I just have to throw it in there. That's the second time I've heard that tonight. It is Great River Sound downtown, and
I'm
it
sorry.
has not existed since 2019. So
Sorry, Dan.
Alder Smith.
So really concept would be is you build a prototype. This would be the first
That's
one.
what we're gonna
building
do.
a
We want to
prototype.
build one, and what started this whole thing was I received an anonymous donation of $800 from a gentleman in our community that said, would you please do something exciting for our city? We thought this was a great idea. So we have enough money to build one. Balduzzi has talked about donating lumber. And like I said, it's an experiment. Sure, we got to get the design right. It's got to be balanced right. It's never been built before. This is something that isn't, we don't have a plan for it. Yeah, we have a plan, but you know what I mean? We're not taking it out of a magazine or something like that. So it will probably be the only rockin' sunfish in all of the United States or potentially the world, who knows? I guess, yes, it is sort of an experiment, and we just want to experiment with one. And if that works and everybody thinks it's a great idea and we can move forward, it will cost the city nothing at that point. The only thing we do have to discuss is the insurance, if we would carry a rider, or you would carry a rider, or how we would do that. I do have a carpenter that is willing to, he's a very crafted man. He's willing to build this for us. We've talked to, oh God, I can't think of the name of the company. Downtown in La Crosse, they have a metalworks guy who can build us the runners and all that kind of stuff. So, that's kind of where we're at. We've got a prototype put together, and
I just think, I like the idea. I really do. And at first, I didn't think the park would be the right place for it. But as a prototype, I would be open to putting one in there and seeing how it goes. I'm not for sure 3 or 4 would fit in there anyhow. That area is not a lot of big, but if you put one there and it was successful, could you possibly expand it across the street? River and have
That
them
might be what happens.
both sides where you have people coming up the road. You could see them either way.
Yeah.
Just a thought, but I like the idea. I think and as Dan said, they're used, Vibrant is, we're starting to use it Vibrant a lot, you know, and what Vibrant means and kind of out of the box, something different for Onalaska, Live on Alaska. To me, I could see Live on Alaska, Love on Alaska right under the sunfish. Just have it as a tag to it. I just think it's something futuristic and new, and we should try it.
Aldernaut.
Just again, I'm gonna be a broken record here. I don't like hearing the no cost to the city or free to the city because it's not. And again, I'm not opposed to the idea, but I still need to see some of these hidden costs. We mentioned the liability insurance already, but there's also going to be staff every single spring having to set up, staff every single fall having to tear down, and then we're going to have storage. There are costs to this, and we can't go into this vote thinking that it's 100% free to the city. It is not, and we actually don't know what all the costs will be.
I will say that at the Park and Recs, we did talk to, give me
Lane,
your name.
Lane.
You know, would this be, you know, a burden for you to, you know, bring them in the spring or in the fall and take them out in the spring? And he didn't seem to think so. I think anything that we do is somewhat of a risk. No, nothing does come free. I understand that. I mean, you know, I of all people probably understand that. So I think we were waiting, and when we came to the last, I think it was the Park and Rec meeting, they were going to try to get a price together on a liability rider. And if that was something that the Oak Group would pick up, then, you know, okay, tell us how much is it and what do we got to do? You know, so.
So quick question. I don't know if I need to ask Dan with this or not. So if, for example, these were to be placed, any one or more were to be placed at the Great River Landing, would they have to be switched out for winter?
Yes, just for snow removal purposes.
Yeah.
And so we wouldn't want them as more obstacles for us to have to go around. So yes, we would take them in, and the longevity of the horses would last much longer if we take them in to get them out of the elements.
Storage would be up at Works?
No, they're out of space up there themselves. So we would look at,
Yeah.
you know, we would look at probably using one of our shelters that we close down for the winter months. So this would have to work. I think, you know, back to the comment that was made at the park board level, you know, there's not going to be a set date. It's not going to be necessarily April 1st, they're out, and October 30th, they go in. It's going to fit into the staff time when they get them all, when they come in, you know, back and forth. So I think that's the way we would look at it, but we could put them in a shelter that, you know, is locked now for the winter months that we winterize.
Thank you, Dan. Anything else, Joyce, at this time?
I can't think of anything.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated.
Okay,
Thank you. Aldernaut.
Yeah, so again, where I personally stand, obviously I'm opposed to the location. But I'm very open to the project, and it was the rocking sunfish that changed my mind. When this first came up as rocking horses, I didn't get it. But the sunfish, I do. All right, but I can't in good conscience make a vote to approve without knowing the cost. And I understand that's coming. So I think we're premature to be voting on this until we know what the actual cost of the city is going to be.
Chair will certainly entertain a motion to possibly refer this to next month.
I'll move that we
Get a
refer
motion
this.
until we get a cost.
I'll move that we refer this to next month in hopes that we get the hidden costs to this project,
To council next
to
month.
council next month. Yes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Aldernaut, second by Alder Smith to refer item C, the request pending costs for the insurance writer. Is that correct? Or something to that effect.
Well, hidden costs, all,
Hidden costs.
I mean, storage, staff time, insurance, and anything else I might be missing. I just would like to know what the cost to the city is going to be.
Amanda and then Stevens.
Yeah, so just to clarify, we would be looking at getting an estimate from Civic for the cost of the temporary rider. I don't know that there's necessarily a cost to utilizing the public or the park shelter if it's closed for the winter. We would be estimating our time that Park and Rec staff would need to use to both put it out and then to store it over the winter. I I mean, we'll brainstorm any other costs, but just off the top of my head, I think that's the cost we would be looking at gathering. If anybody else has any that stand out to them, please let me know.
Again, I just like making an informed decision. That's all. I want you to know I am open to this.
And I'm just trying to get this, keep moving forward.
Thank you.
So Alder Stevens.
Just like to reiterate, perhaps people didn't hear, Joyce had suggested that Oak would potentially pick up the cost for insurance. So that, I mean, potentially is off the table. I think that the city should still see what the cost is. It might make sense to add on to the existing policy, and perhaps the organization can reimburse the city rather than get it on the open market, which might cost more. I think any chance that we have to collaborate with local groups, I mean, we should explore that. We want groups to, put their time and their talent into our city if we want to be vibrant. And like, I know everything has a cost, but at some point, do we apply this metric to everything? We've got what's the cost for maintaining the sculpture at Great River Landing? I mean, it's an asset to our city. Everything was donated, but somebody still probably has to go off and power hose the thing down. And do we do those same metrics with every other entity, every fun thing that we have, any cultural venue? Why is this special and unique, I guess? Everything is going to have some expenses. The organization has agreed to basically bear the cost. Parks has said that, yeah, we can move it. Oak has said that, we'll cover the insurance. I mean, I think sometimes you just got to pull the trigger and take a plunge, take a flyer on let's have this out here for 2 months. Let them start construction. If we table this, we're going to lose a month. What happens if, how long does it take to make something that's unique and new? We are losing time if we do that. So I don't know if it matters if this is out in April or May or June, but I guess the question is really, I mean, let's sometimes take a plunge. So I don't know that we need to refer this. I think that we should just pull the trigger now, start this. And as Joyce said, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we just move on with our lives.
Thank you, Alder Stevens. Alder Jurassic and then Nunn.
I like the idea of postponing it because then it'll give the organization time to actually come up with better drawings, design concepts and everything like that. Right now we have a rough drawing and painting of it. So I think a month delay would help out there.
Okay, thank you. Alder Nunn.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I can assure Alder Stevens that this is not an exceptional concern only for this project. I was not on the Common Council at the time, but I was on that Parks and Rec board when the Great River Landing sculpture was being discussed. And I pushed very hard for what is the cost going to be for maintenance? What are we expecting to be for vandalism? I brought those things up. Is this going to be something we have to concern security? Even with Dash Park itself, I was on the Park and Rec board when that came forward as being donated to us graciously. I still had the questions on what is the maintenance cost going to be on this? What are these hidden costs that we're not seeing? So I am not holding anyone to a higher standard. I have done this on every single project we have had across the board.
Thank you, Alder Nunn. And I know I was just coming on council back in 2018 when the sculpture was coming before us, and I thought it was a fantastic idea, and it was just a great. It was just great all the way around. And but I was the one who really pushed, and I'm sure there were some people who weren't very happy with me, but I was the one who led the charge to make sure that, and I made the motion to not allow installation until we had security cameras there. And it wasn't based on my opinion or my personal agenda or anything, but my number one thought was, if there is vandalism, how do we explain to all those people who contributed and to the committee who worked so hard and so long and gave so much of their time and energy and talent and dollars that we were ignorant enough not to have some type of security cameras there, and $180,000 structure was destroyed. So that's why I did that. And I was very clear in my motion, but I'm sure there were some people who weren't happy, but I didn't care, because at the end of the day, it's up to the 6 of us to set policy, and then we have to answer to the people. And I would do it again, because I wanted to protect the investment that those people put in personally. And that's why I did that. And I would do it again. And I'm just trying to move this forward. I mean, we could kill it tonight, but I don't think we want to kill it. And that's why I said, what can we do to get this moving along? Alder Stokes.
I agree with Alder Knott. I think all he's doing is doing his due diligence. And I think that the citizens of the city of Onalaska would want us to do our due diligence. And I don't think that there's anything in what you're trying to do that's above and beyond what other things have been done in the past. So I can understand where you're going. And I think you're just trying to make sure that we can make a good decision when we're going to make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief. Oh, good. Another point of view, please. We need something different and new.
Two schools of thought. First, I would offer my personal opinion. I am in favor of the project. In fact, Alder Stevens may recall back in Racine, we had, I believe there were storks that were made by artists that were in front of businesses and whatnot, that were very popular, and I thought added a lot of vibrancy to the downtown area. But from a police standpoint, I'm going to say that I'm neutral, but I would just add that the council and maybe the art keepers consider in their design, whether it's some type of loosely fit strap that goes over one of the rockers down there so that they don't get stolen, because that is what did happen down in Racine. We'd have our, pieces broken or stolen and whatnot. And so that it may add burden to our department. I think they could be still very functional by having some type of strap over one and still allowing it to rock, but not get stolen. So maybe that's not the final design, but something for them to consider. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. I've forgotten where we were. quite frankly.
Motion was that we refer this to next month.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Any other discussion? All those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions? So 5 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Stevens. Thank you for coming in this evening.
It was referred to next month, so we'll talk about it again next month once we have those questions answered related to the cost of insurance, the cost of staff time.
So it'll be on next month's council agenda. Thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Since we're on the interim city administrator, can we just finish it off? So we don't have to jump around anymore. Item 12D, resolution 25-2022, preliminary resolution to vacate and discontinue portions of French Road located adjacent to the western parcel line, 200 French Road in the city of Onalaska, La Crosse County, Wisconsin. Amanda.
I'm going to turn this over to our planning manager, Katie Aspenson.
Oh, great. Hello, Katie.
Thank you. Before you this evening, this is a request from DBS Group. They purchased the land that is located directly north of the Co-op Credit Union on French Road. They are requesting that portions of French Road be vacated and discontinued in order to allow them to reach a minimum of 1 acre of development, which is needed for a planning and development application coming forward. They worked with Jared to ensure that they'd have minimum right of way in the boulevard area. And This is the preliminary resolution before you this evening. Included in your packet is also a map of the area to be vacated. Thank you.
Thank you. So the resolution, we are going to have that public hearing on Tuesday, February 14th, then, 2023. Okay, thank you. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 25-2022.
Second.
Motion by Alder Knott, second by Alder Jurassic to approve resolution 25-2022. Discussion.
Did I hear Jared, you said you were
Smith?
okay with? No, Jared.
Yes, Alder Smith.
Yep, thank you. In your packet tonight is the drawing for the vacation. This right of way was actually put together in the 1930s, and what they did is they followed the old dirt path that went back to the farm. And now that we've got this worked out with the adjacent property owner, we are maintaining the right of way that we need for the current roadway system we have. We will have 11.5 feet behind the curb and gutter, so we could install a sidewalk if we ever wanted to. It'd be typical city right of way. So I worked with the engineer and the surveyor on this and would recommend approval.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jared. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion to approve resolution 25-2022, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And if we could go back now to non-consent agenda recap items, number 7 pulled from the consent agenda. There were none. Item 8, Finance Committee, Alder Stevens.
Thank you, Madam President. I feel like we should be past finance by now.
We've talked enough about money and everything else.
All right, under item 8A vouchers, the following is a list of monies expended since the last common council meeting dated November 8th, 2022, and the amount is $2,129,000. I'm sorry, $2,129,402.04. And I move that we approve that.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Smith to approve vouchers in the amount of $2,129,402.04. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Under item 8B, authorization to use police designated equipment funds. Chief, I'm sorry, I'm not recalling what that was. Could you refresh my memory, please?
Sure. There is a memo in the packet with the quote. This is the Axon interview room project that was on the 2023 capital improvement budget. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the impression was that project got pulled from the capital improvement budget with the intention that it could be funded through equipment replacement funds. And working with Finance Director Steger, we did identify funds in the police designated equipment funds area that there is sufficient funds in there to fund this project. I'm wondering how many times I can say funds, but there is sufficient funds in there along with the unused funds from this year's Axon interview project. So a combination of those two will fully fund this project. So I'm requesting permission to move forward with that project so I can capitalize on the current costs before costs go up down the road.
All right, so I will make a motion to authorize the use of the equipment replacement fund number 207-000-000-34234 in the amount of $20,909.49.
I'll second.
So motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Knott. And I think you meant to say 34236. It's a 34 in the amount of $20,909. I think is it zeros? Is it 49 cents? Is there too many zeros in there? You threw me. $20,900. $9.49. Oh, my goodness.
34236 in the amount of $20,909.49.
Thank you. And Sabrina.
Thank you. So just a recap, so this was on the 2023 CIP list and it was decided to forego the project. To forego the project at that time, it didn't make it in the selection process that is in your packets tonight. After discussion with Chief Ashbeck, he did have some funds remaining from the first 2 or 3. Did you do first 3 of the rooms? 'Cause
Yes.
the first 3, he had some savings in what we had budgeted for that. So we had $6,900 remaining. So in discussion with him, we decided to use the equipment replacement funds. That equipment replacement account is designated to just the police. So these are prior projects that have happened where the money was carried forward for use of the police department.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, Chief, is there a reason why this item did not hit F&P last week?
Yes, so with discussion with Chief, I think it just didn't make it through with F&P. It just came late to me. And then secondly, I know Chief is trying to get this approved so then he can use the quote that was given for this year. Whereas you mentioned before, next year, the prices will likely just continue to rise. And I think the quote ends on 12/31.
Correct.
So he has to give consent on that.
Great, and thank you. And I know too, we've had past discussion about past use of the designated equipment replacement fund, and that going forward, we are going to treat all departments the same and not have these designated funds. And this should just pretty much exhaust that account.
Yeah, I think there's 28,000 in that account right now. So this would bring it down to, about 7,000 remaining in that account.
Okay. And is the plan still to leave that there for them to still use for something else? That would have to come through council to approve. Okay. Okay, thank you. So there is a motion on the floor to, I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Alder Nat.
Yeah, I just want to confirm with Sabrina if I'm understanding this right. So if this goes through as approved, it will increase item 11A when we get to it on the capital improvement projects by $6,900 in ARPA above and beyond what's in that list.
No, it will not.
It will not.
So it's the $6,900 was remaining ARPA funds that he had budgeted for 2022.
I understand. All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good question. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
All right, well, that explains why I didn't recall that from F&P. Item 8C, resolution 20-2022, a resolution to increase salaries for the common council. My understanding of this is, this would be for half of common council, those elected in the odd years, and it was to the tune of about $6 a month. But because of, I guess the state statutes, this is something that we will have to vote on every year. So I will make a motion for its approval.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Smith to approve resolution 20-2022. Discussion. Alder Nat.
This is just tied to a standard formula now, correct? If I recall from our previous discussions.
Yes.
COLA, it's the COLA that staff.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay.
Something that we decided 2 years ago. It's still playing catch up for some odd reason. Yeah, so. And will this be roll call? Good idea to do roll. Yeah, let's do a roll call on this just to do a roll call. So we have a motion on the floor to approve resolution 20-2022. We can have a roll call.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye.
Moving on to the item 9 under personnel. Item A is the 2023 seasonal part-time seasonal wage scale. I know our HR director, Amy Franston, is trying to streamline the process, but Lexi, you enlighten us a little bit?
Absolutely. So this project that's been discussed a little bit and at FMP, Amy has been working on this with department head.
Get a little closer.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Bless you. Thank you.
Let me try and put it there. Maybe that's a little better. Okay. So Amy has been working on this, updating this seasonal wage scale most of this year along with department heads. Some of the positions were no longer applicable. Some positions were merged into another one. Some titles were changed, minor. This has not been updated for many years, and supervisors, department heads were just kind of adjusting the scale as they were directed. So this will be, you know, all laid out nice. Everyone will fit into this scale to be effective for January 2023.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Lexi at this time?
I'll make a motion that we approve the seasonal part-time seasonal wage scale.
I second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Stokes to approve the 2023 seasonal part-time seasonal wage scale as per our packet 9A. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Item 9B, the part-time firefighter job descriptions. My understanding is that we had essentially too many types of part-time firefighter job descriptions, and this was also streamlined, but Lexi, if you could.
Correct, absolutely. So, and I'm going to say as well that these job descriptions were approved by PFC in early November. And of course, Chief is here to speak on these if we need. But yes, so simplified the job descriptions, and it makes it easier to show the progression of the steps that a part-time firefighter would go through, starting as uncertified, then becoming certified, being a regular part-time firefighter, and then, you know, moving up to potentially even, you know, the full-time position. Hopefully that answered that.
And now the three, so one would be skilled as an EMT, one is just a general firefighter, and what was the third one?
Correct. So EMR, they're certified, and then the EMT, and then so EMR, EMT.
Here comes the
Yes,
chief.
I think there's a certified and an uncertified. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a uncertified position with a lower pay, basically like a probationary firefighter. And then it is a firefighter certified EMR, emergency medical responder. And then the next step, the third job description is firefighter EMT, which puts that firefighter in a position of competing for full-time positions. We had a lot of other positions that were just plain firefighter, EMT. We don't use those positions anymore. We never really did that off the ground.
All right, so everything can fit in those three positions. I'll make a motion that we approve the part-time firefighter job descriptions.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Not to approve the part-time firefighter job descriptions. There are three of them this evening. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Item C is the city administrator job descriptions. At F&P, there was some input, and I think was some information going to come back to us. Amanda, could you, or I don't know if Lexi should.
Yeah, absolutely. I can jump in. The 3 points that were brought up at FMP to incorporate some strategic planning, that role, some role in the org chart involvement, as well as the ICS training. All three of those suggested changes were incorporated and are in the version that you have in front of you.
MN and O to be specific. MN and O to be specific is where they are. Yeah.
There, yep.
All right, I'll make the motion for its approval.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Smith to approve the city city administrator job description. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Item 9D is the reclassification of human resources generalist position and updated job description. Amanda, do you want to take that one?
I can, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be added. I think, we talked about this at Finance and Personnel. This originally came through in the budget, but then was reviewed separately afterwards. Amy and I worked on, an updated job description, as it relates to this. I don't know that my memo got included.
So I think one of the big changes, because this was discussed last month, and in reviewing in the reclassification, it was determined that this required a degree, and there'd be kind of filling in for like at case in point tonight, the department head position. So
Yeah, so the kind of biggest things that stood out that ultimately pushed it to the next level as far as the points to determine a grade change would be that this requires a bachelor's degree. And in comparing it to other positions in the city and where they were graded, this becomes more consistent with those positions. This requires 3 years of human position, so it's not a right out of school type position. And so again, comparing it with similar positions within the city, this puts it more in alignment with other positions. And then also looking at the grade difference between the HR manager position and the HR generalist position, because the HR generalist position is a position that it would eventually move into an HR manager type position. And we had a very wide spread between the two positions. So this takes it down at least one notch to bring it just a little bit closer.
all right, did I make a motion already? All right, I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Jurassic to approve the reclassification of human resources generalist position and updated job description. Discussion. Under discussion, I would like to add that I know this kind of got stuck at F&P 2 in October. And I appreciate that, in my opinion, the process worked. We followed the policy, referred it to our interim city administrator to look at the policy that was set. We cleaned up what the policy was for reclasses and such, I think the following month. So that it was much more clear and the process worked. So I appreciate the time that and attention that was taken and given to this. And I appreciate, and it took the emotion out of the whole situation. So thank you for everyone for doing that. So motion on the floor is to approve item 9D. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item 9E. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Item 9E. The reclassification of the sales marketing coordinator and updated job description. I think this is kind of a repeat from item 9D. However, this would be the sales position at the Omni Center, and I believe the position is funded through tourism.
Yep,
So-
so this would not have an impact on the general fund, unlike item D. In this position, very similar, similar education requirement. But also this was a brand new position created that we have never had before. And so this was sort of, and I can, if Dan wants to go into more detail, you can always ask our park and rec director, Dan Wick. But this was a position we've had for about a year now. And we found that the position was doing a lot more city events than originally thought, and so responsible for a lot of event management planning. And so we expanded that job description just a little bit, as well as requiring that advanced degree. And so when we did those changes and we rescored it, that resulted in the grade change.
I will make the motion to approve the reclassification of the sales marketing coordinator and updated job description.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder not to approve the reclass of sales marketing coordinator and updated job description. Discussion, Alder Stevens.
So I would like to point out that we made a shift a few years back on how we would operate the Omni Center and would make it more sales focused. The Omni Center has been firing on all cylinders with the current staff. I mean, it's booked all the time. We've been running an operational profit for an enterprise fund. That is fantastic. So, this is a case where they've shown us that this is the right path. And, I think that we need to compensate the individuals appropriately. So, it's good job when you're making money for the city.
Alder Jurassic.
The question I have is, you struck out associate degree and it's requiring a bachelor's or for a sales position?
So when we looked at other similar positions in the area, and this is kind of a unique position, they all are requiring bachelor's degrees. So that's why we made that change to do that.
So it would be, there's a marketing component to it as well. So having a background in marketing is helpful.
Yeah. So that's a marketing degree.
It's a combination. I mean, sales and event marketing.
That's all I have. Chair.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye. Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Item 9F, the unmanned aircraft system, or the UAS policy, but also refer to it as the drone policy. I'll make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Knott to approve the unmanned aircraft system policy. Discussion. Alder Knott.
Yeah, that there was two issues that I was concerned with on this last week, and they've both been addressed. One was a more descriptive definition of what the UAS team was, and then the other one was a more restrictive description of when it can be used for GIS mapping. And again, those have both been assuaged. I'm happy. So.
Thank you. Do you want to give any input or you're good? Okay. I think we're good. So any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm showing that it is 8:43. Could we take about a good firm 5-minute break before we continue? Is everyone?
Run on the meeting.
Well, I ask
firm of
for
a-
permission. I don't ask for forgiveness. Okay, so if we could all be back in our seats by about 11:02, so we can be ready to go by 10:02, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so we are back on. Thank you everyone for that quick little break. It is approximately 9 minutes to 9. Number 10, judiciary. Is typically Alder Stokes, but she was excused absent, and we're going to turn it over to Larry Jurassic, who is vice chair and ran judiciary last week. Alder Jurassic, number 10.
Thank you, Chair. Number 10, Judiciary Committee Resolution 22-2022, approval of the 23 resolution recovery special charges. Who's going to talk about it?
Are you going to make a motion from the committee?
Well, okay, I'll make the motion that we accept the 22-23 capital one. Approval of the 22-23 resource recovery specialist charges.
I'll second.
Motion by Alder Jurassic, second by Alder Knott to approve resolution 22-2022, approving the 2023 resource recovery special charge. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
So I really don't want to sound like a broken record, but with this resolution and the way that the finances shook out, we were kind of in an awkward position. I did vote to approve the budget, realizing that this was in here, but I will be casting a symbolic no vote tonight because as stated in the past, this extra fee is borne solely by single family to 4-unit households and is not passed on to other, multi-use industrial, commercial. Anything that goes to pay our general bills should be borne equally by everyone in the city, and businesses do not, it's not policed where they have to pay for recycling. I mean, if they haul it off themselves, I guess they would pay for that, but they are not paying part of this fee. Arguably, they may put it with their regular garbage and just have it hauled off, but I don't think that, especially sticking the Onalaska homeowners not equal. It's not equal and it's not fair. I realize that that's not going to go anywhere, and my vote is symbolic, but that's why I will be voting against Resolution 22-2022.
Thank you. Alder Stevens, Alder Not.
I just, I do want to put on the record also that the city does not provide recycling services to industrial commercial because they already pay for that on their own, if that is my understanding. Yeah, so I'm not sure I agree with that. They're not paying their fair share. They've actually been paying all along.
Thank you, Alder Not. Any further discussion? Amanda?
I guess just to further clarify that, the $223,423 is the exact cost we pay our third-party vendor to provide recycling charges to those 0 to 4 residential. So we are passing the direct cost that the city pays for their benefit on to them.
Actual users.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the interpretation that the board took at that time, and we agreed with it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Jared, you don't have your hand up, but any reason why you want to lob something at us, or do you want to just remain mute on this subject? And
No, Amanda answered my question I was going to answer.
pardon?
Amanda took care of my answer.
Okay, thank you. I can't see, the greenery is covering up.
Oh, no, you're
Yes,
good. I'm
Sabrina.
hiding in the green.
Sorry.
I just want to add that if this doesn't pass, then we need to make a huge budget change. So I just wanted to-
Substantial.
substantial, $223,423. So
Yeah, and the one thing that I would like to add is I will be approving this or voting aye for this evening. But that my vote also is partially based on that we've had discussions at this council level about how we're going to be advertising this. So that to me is imperative that we educate our constituents where this is coming from, why we are doing this. I'm not asking for a word for word verbatim like how Madison did it, but something similar or whatever staff, it's not for me to say, but whatever staff comes up with, that something that is very well versed in however like Madison did, because I thought their example was unbelievably very transparent. They just told the unvarnished truth, which I really appreciated, because I think that's what we are, our constituents, why we are doing this. So any other input at this time? Let's do a roll call vote.
Alder Jurassic,
Yay.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Hey.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye. Resolution 22-2022 passes 5-1. So Sabrina, you're safe. So budget is safe. Thank you. Larry?
Okay, resolution 24-22, changes city hall hours. I know we've received several letters and 2 speakers this morning. Yeah, about changing these, they brought their feelings forward, but my motion is to accept the change of city hall hours as we currently have them written,
As what?
as we have approved.
It was not approved at ANJ.
Right, approve the resolution.
Okay, because it was not approved at judiciary. It was referred to council for the full discussion. So your motion is to approve it this evening.
Right.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion by Alder Jurassic, seconded by Alder Smith to approve resolution 24-2022. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
So I have a lot of notes on here on the way that the resolution was written might benefit from some cleanup. The third, whereas we're talking about the current hours, which I assume in the last year, our current hours has been 8 to 4. They're referencing the current hours causing staff to come in early and stay late to finish tasks, which cannot be done while staff are manning public facing counters, which can lead to overtime and comp. There's several other things, but before I get into the kind of my philosophy, the section where it says now therefore be it resolved, the word permanently seems like it's superfluous. So if you want to change the time, you could just say the hours of City Hall shall now be open at 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But so those were kind of the little ticky-tack thoughts. I guess in general, I know that we have seen a lot of feedback from staff on in support of the 8 to 4 hours, and that's certainly understandable. I'm not convinced that we have really polled or had any conversations with, aside from a few people that bothered to show up, who would be the end users. We are in the government business, and our customers are people that live in Alaska. They are stakeholders in their city government, and I just don't feel that we've reached out. I mean, we kind of took some data in to see how many complaints that they had. And I think that's a good start, but it struck me like I think we have a hearing later this week or next week. We put a roundabout in, we have a hearing. Anything that we do in the city that affects people, we're likely to have a hearing. And why are we not getting the feedback from the people that we serve? I don't know that it makes a difference if we went from 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. If people work during a normal first shift, if you work till 5, you're going to miss part. You're not going to make it in time. So I don't really have a problem with 4 o'clock, but as I think Ms. Frost had pointed out in public input that, she wants to do business with real people, and she has to take off time from her work to get here. So I believe when we first talked about this, I brought up, maybe we could somehow accommodate where it would be convenient for staff. Maybe keep the 4 o'clock. Initially, I thought 4:30 would be a better time, but if we can get the job done at 4 o'clock, then I'm okay with that. But it'd be nice if there was some element where there was customer facing functions of city government that maybe one night a month they could be open till like 5:30 or something like that. I think in some of the emails I see that they mentioned it might have been an anomaly, but they'd had relatively heavy traffic in that last hour. I mean, that's probably one every 4 minutes. I mean, that's not insignificant. And I guess my final thoughts is if one of the whereases here kind of pointed that we wanted to align with other municipalities. I did a little research. So if Onalaska is 8 to 4, that is now 40 hours that we are open. That's 8 hours per day. Ullman is 8 to 4:30, which is 42 and a half hours a day. La Crosse has an interesting model. They're 8 to 4. They're only open Monday through Thursday, and then they have, I assume it's a work day. Maybe that's when they take their PTO. I'm not sure, but so they're only customer facing 32 hours, but some other communities like West Salem, 43.75 hours. That's 8.75 hours a day. That's 8 a.m. to 4:45 p.m. La Crescent is 7:30 in the morning till 4. Sparta is 7:30 till 4:30. they're like, they are available to their citizens 45 hours. So discounting La Crosse, which you know, they're just not servicing the public on Fridays. Onalaska is open to its customers the least amount out of most of our peer communities. If we can get the job done, I guess I'm okay with that. But I think one night we should be open later. I think that would be a nice compromise. My final point is some of the points in the resolution I thought were a little contradictory. It suggests that staff has to come in early or stay late because there's not enough time with all the customer facing hours. You're not reducing those, but now there's less time in the day. So how is it that you have more time to take care of the general office duties if there's less time where people are coming in, unless people are working outside of the 8 to 4? I mean, it's I'll hand this over, maybe directed to Amanda, but like, when is our staff supposed to show up and when are they supposed to leave?
So I do apologize. What it should say is whereas the prior hours cause staff to come in early or stay late to finish tasks, which cannot be done while staff are manning public facing hours. So what would happen is when we worked 8 to 5, and as you'll see in the memo that I passed out, is staff are coming in at the exact same time that customers are coming in, right? And I'll actually go back to Ms. Frost's example. And while I can appreciate that she's not a morning person and doesn't like to come in the morning, when you come in at 4:55, that transaction will take till 5:20 to complete. And so when that happens, we are paying comp time and or overtime for those people that are coming in at the very last minute, whether it's, you know, at the end of the day. So what having the 40 hours a week does is it gives us flexibility to have staff work an 8.5-hour day and to take our staff and sort of overlap them. So we have some staff that will come in and they'll work 7:30 to 4. So they're the ones that are getting the tills ready, turning on the computer, and they're ready to go meeting and greeting people at 8 a.m. So that first transaction can start at 8. On the flip side, we have some staff that are going to work 8 to 4:30 and take a half an hour lunch. So those staff are the ones that at 4 o'clock can then finish that transaction, wrap up the till, count down the money, and we're not accruing that overtime or that comp time. And so by reducing the amount of coverage, but not changing our hours, it gives us more flexibility at the start and the end of the day to sort of do the stuff we need to do to start and end a transaction, if that makes sense.
So staff is not necessarily aligned with the 8 to 4.
No, staff works, generally speaking, we have staff that work 7:30 to 4. We have staff that work 8 to 4:30. We do have some people that really enjoy a 1-hour lunch. There are a handful of people that may still work 8 to 5.
Was I the only alder that wasn't aware that not everybody was 8 to 4? Because if so, then we could probably gloss over a lot of this.
We specifically actually told people that generally they were not supposed to work straight 8s, that was part of when we went to this change. We did not want people working straight 8s so that they would be working 8.5, minimum 8.5-hour shifts.
And then does the federal government require, like, people are given so many breaks and lunch hours? Are we compliant with that?
Yes.
All right, well,
But the customer coming in, it stops at 4.
Correct.
So Amanda, so if someone comes in at 10 minutes to 4 now, and they have some involved process, they're able to stay after 4. Right, yeah, okay, I got that. So let's see, is there yes, there is a motion on the floor to approve in a second. I would make a friendly amendment on the third whereas, where it would read, so there'd be 3 little teeny tiny changes. And so where the word says, I'll read it when I'm all done, but what the 3 words, what my amendment would be instead of the word current hours, it should say prior hours or previous hours, you said, right? It should say previous. And it should be caused versus cause. And we had a constituent write in, instead of manning, we could say staffing. So it should read, so my motion is that the third paragraph read, my friendly motion amendment is, whereas the previous hours cause staff to come in early or stay late to finish tasks which cannot be done while staff are staffing public facing counters, which can lead to overtime comp time. That's my friendly amendment.
Do you need me to remove my
No, this would just be a
amendment?
be just, I'm just amending the motion.
I'll second the amendment.
So motion by Wolf, second by Not for, to amend that. Discussion on that amendment.
Did you also want to remove permanent for the last one
Which one?
currently?
No, I'll let Alder Stevens handle that if he wants to. So right now I've just, what's on the floor are just the three words. Current to previous, cause to caused, and manning to staff. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of said motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. If I may add, earlier this evening, or when I got here earlier, I passed out 3 emails to electeds. I believe I made sure that Mayor Kim had them, and then I also gave them for our city clerk for open records, because they are a handout, and also to city administrator. One was the original one from Kathleen Frost that she sent me back in May 14th, 2022. So that was not a new one. It was just one previously. And I know I had followed up with her, and I followed up with her earlier this evening. Also, I just simply reached out to her and said, we were going to talk about it tonight. If she had any interest, if she wanted to show up, fine. I did ask her though, I passed on to her back in May and June that our city clerk was very forthcoming when I had talked with Joanne about she could certainly reach out to you. I gave her your phone number. You told me that she had not contacted you. I confirmed that with her tonight, which I knew that that was the case. And I had asked her if she had made plans, what she was going to do when, you know, her licenses were going to come up again. And she said she had not made a plan. So my concern is, I laid out the plan for her, contact the city clerk, you'll walk her through the process of how could she possibly do pet licenses online. And she failed to make that phone call. So I am disappointed, but I can't make a phone call for someone. I certainly understand where she's coming from. But number 2, there was an original email that I passed out from Andrea Benko back on Wednesday, October 26th, her concerns. And then also she sent one to Mayor Kim Smith and CC'd me tonight. And I also gave everyone a copy again from Andrea Benko. Going back to the one from October 26th. I know, Amanda, I sent it to you because I know there were concerns from Andrea at the time. She was really concerned about voting at that time. And one thing, and thank you again for the very eloquent response that you gave her. One thing at the very end, you did say, the city will look at expanding our absentee hours for future elections. And then her follow-up email tonight was talking about a number of the situations and various, but at the very end, she did say, if the reduced hours are adopted, please at least consider adding expanded public hours during election early voting periods. So, and she's the one who asked, change it from manning to staffing, which we just did. So, Amanda.
And staff is open to changing our voting hours. We just don't want to confuse the conversation. And so we have plenty of time to address voting in the spring after the new year. And we are open to doing that. But I think we get a little too confused when we start talking about both of them together. So we'd like to just stick to discussing the city hall hours tonight.
Well, and as a follow-up to that, I'll be quite frank. I will not vote yes for that unless I have some absolute assurances that we are going to have a serious talk, and it's probably going to be a yes. Because frankly, I don't care what it costs. Expand.
I can address that if you'd like. I am definitely open to expanding absentee voting hours past 5, having a night 5:30, 6 p.m., but we would need to start later than that day. We are a staff of 2. So if you're looking at us staffing absentee voting hours for 45 hours in a week, you also have to remember that after we close the doors to the public, we still have a lot that we do at the end of the night when it comes to balancing, reconciling all the absentee voters. They all have to be alphabetized, put in the correct ward. if the wrong ward was written on a ballot, we have to figure out where that error came from. It can be a lot of time after work.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of overworking the staff to that point. So we might have to just start later in the day and go until later in the evening.
And for me, I'm just 1 of 6, but I'm not asking to do extended hours, just go back to the original 8 to 5. That would be, not go 5:36. I wouldn't be in support of that, but just go back to the original 8 to 5.
8 to 5 is 45 hours, being open to the public then for absentee voting, plus the time that we will stay late beyond that.
Okay.
I'm a salaried position. I'm fine with that, but my staff is hourly. So then we will need to factor in overtime for every election. Right now, I only budget for overtime for the big elections, the gubernatorial and the presidential. So then we'll be looking at 2 elections in the odd numbered year, 4 elections in the even numbered years, having to add overtime to the budget for that.
Right. Alder Knott?
That, I know we were just requested to make these 2 separate issues, and I agree with that. But in general, any changes we make, if there's going to be somebody recommending a change to this resolution or in the future, we need to identify cost. This is going to be the same thing. We cannot come up with an unresourced requirement that says, we're going to do this additional thing. It's going to have a cost and you all figure it out. That's not what we wouldn't be doing our diligence if we did that. We have to identify the cost. And if there is additional cost, we have to put our names on the line of where are we going to get that money from.
Alder Stevens?
My question is for the clerk. So prior to, how did the clerk's office operate prior to the change in the office hours? So if the concern was we need more budget and really we're just kind of going back to the hours that we had before, could you maybe explain how the difference?
For the smaller elections, it's possible that I can let Stacy leave for a lunch hour. But during the bigger elections, like this last gubernatorial, there's no chance to leave for a lunch hour. So that requires her being here for that entire period between 5 or whatever it's going to be. Especially November election, there's not much of an opportunity to roll in at a comp time. If it's a February election, an April election, instead of having her accrue overtime, I can ask her to build comp time. If it's a November election, it's too late in the year. There's not enough time, then you've now accumulated potentially a week based on all of the extra hours that you have to put in for those 2 weeks, minimum 2 weeks leading up to an election.
Would a temp or maybe a specialized part-time seasonal employee be a benefit?
At an additional cost, yes.
Well, right, but if we're looking at overtime, that might solve that. So I'd like to retain. So to this point, and this actually would have to do with the voting hours, I'll make a motion that we strike the word permanently, especially if we're going to make adjustments for voting hours. If we say that this is permanent gives the impression that it's set in stone and it is not going to change. And if we're having a yes, except for election time, I think it would be better served if this were to just say generally the hours are 8 to 4. And also, I don't, okay, I need to clarify the motion. So I'll just make the motion that we strike the word permanently.
Have a recommendation. Okay, you've got a second.
So motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Jurassic to strike the word permanently in the technically the last paragraph of resolution 24-2022. This is a amended motion. Alder Knott.
I'd like to be even more specific. So I see where you're going, Dan, but I would vote no based upon that verbiage. My recommendation is that any amendment would just state that the city hall routine hours are, and that would be routine, not, you can adjust.
I'm fine with that if you want to make an amendment.
Right. Well, we have an amendment out.
You can amend the amendment.
Could we pull the amendment and the second? That would be so much cleaner, correct? Could we listen to our city clerk? She's nodding yes.
I like to be difficult.
I know.
All right, I will withdraw my motion.
And
Second.
you'll remove your second. So back to Alder Knott.
I'm thinking that, and I believe that, and Dan can tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe this will get what he wants to. Now therefore be it resolved that effective January 1st, 2023, the routine hours of City Hall where it is open to the public shall be 8 AM to 4 PM, and then any policies, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just, so it's saying that these are our routine hours is the bottom line.
I'll second.
So motion by Alder Knott, second by Alder Stevens to adjust or edit the last paragraph. Now therefore be it resolved that effective January 1st, 2023, the routine hours of City Hall. What did you say?
The routine hours at City Hall, when it is open to the public, shall be.
That's it. When it is open to the public, yes, shall be 8 AM to 4 PM. Okay. A discussion, Amanda.
No, I'm gonna wrap this up and then I'll wrap up the amendment and then I'll reserve to come back.
Okay. So that is the amendment on the amended motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Amanda.
Okay, two things since we went down the rabbit hole, is that we have often dealt with this by allowing them comp time, which we have ultimately granted exceptions to allow them to carry over, which is not a great habit to get into. And so that is one way that we have kept the overtime budget down. But I would go back to my original request, and I think that we can come back in January with better numbers about what the cost would be to expand election, as well as a few different options for what election hours could look like in ways that would make more sense to the clerk's office. And so I would ask that we refocus on the resolution in front of you, and Joanne and I will work together to come up with some options related to election hours for January.
Alder Stevens.
So based on that, would it make sense to refer this to the January meeting? So give them time to think about that and incorporate the elections.
I don't think that's necessary. And the reason I say that is this is the routine hours. We're going to be dealing with elections as a separate issue, which would of course potentially adjust this and likely adjust this. So.
Alder Stokes.
I agree. I think we should just keep the election separate and do these hours, the normal hours now. Thank you.
I agree.
Alder Smith.
I agree too. Just keep it separate.
Any further discussion? So we are voting on the original amended motion, which is as originally presented with the two amendments. Did I get that right? Yes. Oh, thank God. It's right.
Great.
We had two amendments.
The other one was
Yours,
for prior staffing instead of manning.
yours and
Yeah,
mine.
yours. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those.
Right. So then are we voting on the resolution then?
Yes,
Okay, so for, go back to discussion if we could.
sure. Alder Stevens.
So I will reiterate my point, I guess, under protest that I don't think that we've really reached out to the public. Maybe there's not an appetite for a hearing or like a late night, but I'm a little concerned that I think the Onalaska citizens are really not factored into this decision-making process. If this is the will of council, then that's how it's going to be. But I like to try to remember who we work for, and that's everyone from mayor to council member to staff. But our job is to serve the public.
Thank you. Alder Stokes.
Late. The problem that I can see is how do you reach out to the public? How do you get them to pay attention to the fact that you're going to do this? Do you try and do it through your website? Do you try and do it as adding something to utility bill, and make this worthwhile? So I feel if you're gonna do this, then we need to do it in such a way that is actually going to get that word out to the individuals that this is maybe something that's gonna happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Stokes. Sabrina.
Before the hours did change back in April, we did send out a flyer to citizens to let them know that we were going to be our new hours were 8 to 4. And again, we didn't receive a lot of feedback from that, where people were upset. So I don't know if sending it in a water bill again for feedback, I don't know how much that would draw. That's just my only, I think you're right. I don't know what the right.
Did you have your hand up, Amanda?
I was just going to echo that for 7 months, we've had this on our Facebook page. We have had it both in post. It was our cover photo for 7 months. We received 0 comments on any of those posts, for good or for bad, quite frankly. It was included in water bill. It was included in the newsletter that was put out at the time, reminding people. And so while we didn't specifically ask for feedback, we put it out in a messaging way in a lot of different ways and did not receive any feedback. You know, we had a public hearing and we had nobody attend it related to the potential for roundabout other than city staff and city older persons. And so, you know, I think it is always an option, but I think it's a difficult option to gauge if we're truly getting an accurate pulse of the city.
Alder Smith.
I think we do just need to proceed with the 4 o'clock, or what we have here is this proposal. I think COVID changed a lot of things, you know, and I think before COVID, we were all used to a lot of in face-to-face, quite a few things. And I think a lot of people got used to working remote, doing things online. It forced a lot of things, good or bad. Now there'll be a lot of people the change they've had a hard time adapting to it. But I think for the most part, the majority of the public almost expects that now. The efficiency of technology and using our resources wisely, always keeping the face-to-face open, you know, but sometimes, you know, and even when I had to work, you have to adjust your schedule to get here if you need to be here in person. But I think that's becoming more the exception than the rule. I mean, yes, you're always going to have people come in and say, I'd rather have it in person. I would too. But I think you have to look at the big picture. And then when you look at all the feedback you get, like you said, we've been doing this for 7 months. And most people say, I don't know why you didn't do it before. So, well, you know, but you're always going to have some people that are never going to be happy with it. We want to respect that. And I think as long as we give them, we're not closing down the office. So, but the hours are going to be a little bit more stringent. So you're going to have to plan accordingly if you really need to be here, or reach out to the staff and see if you can do something differently. Because we've also offered that, I know, where if somebody can't do something and they can call, make an appointment, I'm sure that there's a way we can accommodate an individual basis. So as long as we're not taking that flexibility away, I just think that we just got to get with the times and move more to the modern way of doing things. It's my thought.
So Jared, so when we talked at A&J last week, has and we talked about the cameras and such, has anything been done with looking at the east parking lot door or anything, or?
So upon further review, the camera was installed 6 weeks ago, but we have not finished the NVR recording system yet. So it's not recording yet. It's real time. I can look at the camera on my computer, but we're not recording yet. That project's still getting completed. We have no data from the east camera.
Okay, thank you. Stokes and then Stevens.
I think that the staff that are receiving phone calls in from the public as they do every day can do a huge amount and does a huge amount in explaining situations to people, taking the time to talk to them, and the staff is, I'm sure, doing that. So that's one way that we can get the word out, is just through staff interactions. But unless, I think I've always been told, unless you put something in an envelope that is a god awful color and they have to look at it, they're not going to read everything that you put inside that envelope. You know, so it's hard. That's the hardest thing, is to try and get the word out to people. Thank you.
Alder Stevens.
So we mentioned a few, Amanda mentioned, we had a hearing and it was just council and staff, and we've seen those before. And I guess it kind of struck me, really, if we did have a public hearing, there would be 3 potential outcomes. Either One, the public comes in mass and they say, yes, we're fine with 8 to 4. Option 2 is nobody comes in which case we can assume we're fine with 8 to 4. And option number 3 is they come in and say, no, we want something different. What's the answer? And right now we don't know because we have not asked them. So we're making some assumptions. We've had some elements where, well, we haven't had a lot of complaints, but we haven't admittedly really reached out to them to say that, you know, this could be a thing. I'd remind people when we did the Green Coulee roundabout, the thought was with alders and staff is we would put a stoplight going in there. The public came out and they filled the chamber and they were like, no, we want a roundabout, and it changed what we did. So we thought we knew what the answer was, but when we actually got around to asking the public, they spoke, and I think we even got like thank you letters after the roundabout was put in because it made a difference in the people's lives that live back in Green Coulee. My concern is that there seems to be no appetite for asking the public, hey, what do you think? You know, we are your city government. Are you cool with us closing down at 4? You know, the answer might be yes, like Tom said, maybe they expect it, but gosh, wouldn't it be, is it that terrible to hear from them?
Joanne and then me and then not. I gotta get myself in there somewhere.
I just wanted to address Stan's comments about people not knowing their opportunity to complain. Working in the clerk finance suite for the last 6 years, I can tell you that we're basically the complaint hotline. Like, we get complaints all day long, every day. So I just personally feel that if this was something that the public felt very strongly about, we'd be hearing about it, because they don't hesitate to call us to complain about somebody feeding the squirrels or a barking dog or somebody parking on the street. And I just feel like if this was a real issue, we'd be hearing more than what we are. Thank you.
Thank you. It's funny that you set up my perfect segue. So I had a constituent, second district, had a conversation this past week, and he stood in line to pay his taxes about a week ago or so. And he felt so bad because I think it was Dana who got the verbal abuse from someone that our taxes were so high, and he swore and he said all these things. And I don't know whether he apologized to Dana, but I mean, he really felt bad. So as someone who many years ago in 2008, the presidential election, I was a temporary poll worker and I worked the front desk. I was not on council at the time, so it was about for 3 weeks. And it was very interesting. And I would highly recommend anytime alders ever want to just stand along the wall and listen for a half hour. I was very educated to the process. Days and some days were worse than what I ever imagined. Some days were not so bad, but it was very interesting. So I only got 3 weeks of 6 years of what you have heard. So I'm very sympathetic. You know, I have received some emails from people who feel passionate about their feelings, and I certainly am sympathetic to that. I am one who typically sides with Alder Stevens on the transparency and how we are here to provide a service, and that's something that that touches me all the time. That it's something that's very important to me about that. That's what we are all here, is to provide a service, whether we're electeds or we're staff or department heads or whatever, top down and bottom up, and everything and everyone in between. But at the end of the day, you know, I hear their concerns. But like you said, I mean, there's been like 2, maybe 3 that have reached out to me in the since April. And then I read the email we got from Mark Huseman. I thought he was very well versed when he talked about, and that's one issue that I have with them, maybe like the one night a month. I mean, I think it sounds good on paper, but then when I talk to a few members of staff and department heads, I mean, how do we expect our staff to go ahead and try to work that into their life or we're expecting them to be here 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it's one night a month, especially if they have childcare, and it's really, it's just not a normal hours. And, you know, and do you have it the first day of the month when everyone typically get, if some people get paid and they have more money? If you have it the last end of the month, most people don't have money, they're poor. So, I mean, so I don't think we could ever pick the right date because no one would ever be happy. I do think initially I had a concern. I thought we bit off too much and I didn't think we should go to 4. I thought 4:30 was a really happy number and a really go in between. But it was recommended to go with 4. I didn't support it, but in the end I voted for it. But after reading all the input from department heads and all the various departments, I think they make excellent points. And as someone who has spent a lot of time here and watched, you know, from the side, you know, how the departments work and the hours they put in and what they have to do and all the inner workings. It'll be very hard for me not to support this resolution. And I'm not one who honestly am in favor of it. But when I read the memos and I read the input, I don't know how I cannot support it. Who was next? All or not? Thank you.
So I could make a strong argument. I think that we have allowed a public input period that was well advertised, and it's called an 8+ month test period, where this has been our for over 2/3 of a year. This has been our test timeframe to see how this would operate. Does it meet the needs of the community? Does it meet the desired goals of the staff? And in that time frame of 2/3 of a year, and again, I have great sympathy, I understand, and I'm really glad actually people did share with us their concerns. But the number of folks who had concerns over this change amounts to about 1/100% of the population of the city. And we have to take that into account too. We cannot be all to all at all times. It's not reasonable. It's not even possible. So, you know, I have no problem supporting the resolution as amended at this time.
Thank you. Any other input at this time? Motion on the floor is to approve resolution 24-2022. Aren't we glad we took that 5-minute break almost 45 minutes ago? I saw this coming, just so you know. And so we are looking to approve, or at least a motion on the floor is to approve resolution number 24-2022, amended twice. Any other discussion? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Let's do a roll call vote. Joanne?
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
I'm gonna be a nay.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Larry Jurassic,
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye. Motion resolution number 24-2022 passes 5-1 this evening. Thank you all for very good discussions, and I look forward to staff bringing forth information next month regarding elections. Oh my goodness, where are we at?
11A.
Is Mayor still with us? Mayor Kim? Is Mayor Kim still online?
Probably fell asleep.
I am here, but Stephen Knott is the Chair of Public Works.
Oh, yes, yes. I was just checking before we got to 11 because I don't know if there's going to be a tie or if we're going to need you, or I don't know what's going on. So 11, Board of Public Works, Alder Knott.
So 11A is the approval of the 2023 capital improvements projects. The capital improvements project, as you see it in your packet, was approved unanimously by the Board of Public Works. And that is for $3,652,446 of bonding and $1,240,400 of other sources, with a very significant portion of that coming from ARPA. Sabrina.
I don't have anything to add. I did keep short-term borrowing on there, but likely a project would come under budget, or we would use equipment replacement funds. We wouldn't borrow for that 10,400. That's listed on the improvements budget. I don't have anything else to add.
And also items number 90 and 91 were added at Board of Public Works, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So I will make a motion that we approve the 2023 capital improvements projects.
I will second.
Motion by Alder Knott, second by Alder Smith to approve the 2023 capital improvements projects. Discussion. Alder Stevens.
All right, so having attended the Board of Public Works, I can see how this will probably go, but I did mention that I would be offering an amendment, basically recycling the discussion from last month. Before I state that, I'll just maybe, now I'll make the motion and then I'll retain my position to speak if I could. So I'll make a motion that we remove the 60,000 from the fire department command vehicle and allot it to the Legacy Fund Community Center.
There's already a motion on the floor.
Oh,
I think he's probably trying to amend it. Is that what it is?
yeah, because if we just approve it, then we can't amend it later.
So you're,
So yeah,
you're making
yeah,
an
I'm looking
amendment.
to make an amendment.
So let me just make
Want
sure,
me to restate the amendment?
please.
I will, I move that we amend the capital improvements budget by removing 60,000 from the fire department command vehicle and allotting $60,000 to the Legacy Fund Community Center Building Project. If that passes, I'd like to retain my position.
Is there a second? I will second that. Motion by Alder Stevens, second, or motion to amend to remove item 42 command vehicle for $60,000 and allot it to the Legacy Project, the community center. Motion by Alder Stevens, second by Alder Wolf. Discussion. If we could just go to Sabrina real quick and then Stevens.
I guess my only recommendation would be if we are removing items, that we would just remove it from the total, that we just wouldn't bond for an additional $60,000. That would be my recommendation.
We'd rather bond for less.
Correct.
And stay.
That would be my recommendation, yes.
Thank you. Stands, Alder Stevens.
I'll stand on my motion and I'll explain why. So I have some serious concerns that the community center project with the $580,000, I frankly don't think it's going to be enough. And I would question that if we're not going to do enough, should we do it at all? And then there are some other points. I noticed that the mayor got to vote and voted in favor of this. So if she's the tiebreaker, I'm perhaps not expecting change, but I wanted to have the opportunity for discussion. In my personal business, I'm a little bit more attuned to the automotive industry. And the argument that stands is that the lead time on production of vehicles is really slow right now. And we know that we're going to have to replace a vehicle at some point. My concern is that we are making a purchase of a vehicle at the absolute worst point in time. Manufacturers are getting a premium because of the short supply. We are also past that peak time. So production times and lead times are starting to improve, which would suggest that in the future, we may not have to wait as long and potentially the price on future vehicles could be better. Now, if the vehicle were in dire need, this would be something different, but we're talking about a vehicle that has been very well maintained by our fire department, has, I believe, under 60,000 miles. And there's frankly nothing wrong with it. So we want to borrow money and pay for something that we're not going to get right away. And we're going to pay a premium for that. And we're also not going to fund something that we are committing to the tune of over $500,000. So in the past, I've stated that we need to be smart. We need to use our money smartly. So in the past, we pushed to increase the capital improvement budget to buy fire truck number 1. And the reason was interest rates were really low and you should borrow more for things that you know you're going to have to get when the cost of funds is when they're almost giving the money away. Since then, rates have gone up and now we're looking at borrowing for a different vehicle for that same department. And we're gonna pay more, but I don't know that we really need that vehicle now. And I'm not convinced that that vehicle will not be available in the future year. We know that we're gonna start working on our community center, and this is something that people in the community use, especially the elderly. And then we can expand I think the Meals on Wheels, or there's a community, there's functions that service the community. And why are we gonna cut corners on something that is gonna be used for something that we don't need now, and likely the situation is going to improve by the time that the next budget cycle moves around. So I think I know how the vote's gonna go, but I think this is important discussion to get on the record. If we don't fund the community center all the way, maybe we should just borrow the 580,000 less and not go down that road. I don't think that's what we should do. But if we're gonna do the project, we should do it right, and we should do it right the first time. And to me, I'm sorry to Chief Goody to try to pick on the $60,000. I'm just not convinced that this is that command vehicle is a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina and then Stokes.
I think the intent at Board of Public Works was that we would fund a portion of the community center, like get the design work going, and then likely have to borrow over 2 years for the community center. I know those discussions did happen at Board of Public Works. So I think the initial thought was to give these dollars right away, and then likely we will have a portion that we'll have to borrow for in 2023 or for 2024 for the rest of the community center.
Alder Stokes.
Sabrina, I have a question. When we started this, we were at 3.8 on the capital improvement budget, and you wanted to be at 3.5.
I'd love to be at 3.5. That
Where are
is
we now?
typically, we're at 3.6.
Okay, so we're at 3.6. Are you satisfied with that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable where we're at, but I just believe that if we are going to be taking items off the list, then we should just bond for less, in my opinion.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Alder Knott.
Two main comments here. First off, by not funding this, the main discussion at the Board of Public Works, where again, it was passed unanimously to fund this, is that this is the proverbial kicking the can down the road if we don't fund it. This item is part of a larger replacement plan that is ongoing forever within the fire department. If we don't do this, that plan is going to bring another vehicle next year, or potentially vehicles. So they have to look and see what the 2024 plan was, and have this one also. And if we say, well, we're not going to do that, then now we got 3 or 4 the next year. So there is a real danger of not sticking to the replacement plan when it comes to vehicles. The second thing, as far as the rates are concerned, legitimate concern. However, everything I'm reading, rates are expected to continue to go higher. And in fact, pretty much most of the economists that I've read, both in mainstream press and in financial news sources, are predicting that the economy is more likely than not to enter a recession next year if we are not indeed in one already. So rates are more than likely, again, this is prediction, nobody knows, but I firmly believe rates are more than likely than not next year to be even higher than what they are this year. So I can't support the amendment. I think we need to stick with the capital improvements budget as passed by the board.
Thank you. Alder Smith.
I'll be not supporting this amendment either. I think I trust the public works looked at this, unanimously voted for it, so I'll support their recommendation.
Thank you. Jurassic and Stevens.
I can't support it either. We've talked so much about this vehicle and the setback of other vehicles at the fire department. They've done a lot of research as far as what vehicles could go downwind and have that somewhat lined up with what their future purchase is gonna be. By not doing this, it backs up the whole thing. We've had several hours of discussion on it, so I cannot support it.
Thank you. Alder Stevens?
So all the points about the keeping to a plan and the schedule of buying vehicles, those are well taken, and I don't disagree with that. However, I might disagree with the frequency, which has been just kind of taken as a given. Are we being good stewards of taxpayer funds if we're replacing vehicles at 60,000 miles? I mean, vehicles are lasting a lot longer, and I think there's more life in them. When we're auctioning off vehicles, when we buy a vehicle, we're paying the kind of full price, manufacturer suggested retail price, or maybe there's an adjustment because we're a government entity, but then they're being auctioned off. And when people buy at auction, they are buying at a huge discount. I think potentially if we were to retain the sales here, I don't want to create extra work for staff, but we could probably get more money than we're getting. So if you spread things out a little bit further, if necessary, I don't think that getting rid of a perfectly good vehicle and one that will probably still be serviceable several years from now, if it's, this isn't a new vehicle that we're dealing with, we're not putting that many miles on it a year. A little bit of maintenance will go a long way, and we could potentially save Onalaska taxpayers some significant amount of money if we adjust the frequency at which we are buying vehicles. Just saying it's next up on the ladder. This car's got to go. I think that's bad policy.
Thank you. Alder Stevens, so, I've been here long enough that, where if we put things off, I understand that, especially Mayor Kim and I said years ago that we would never do that for police vehicles again. So, because we ran into a problem. Where I'm hearing people though, where I differ tonight though, is, I keep hearing that if we put it off 1 year for this fire vehicle that, well, we're going to have an additional one next year. Well, kind of segueing into what Alder Stevens just said, who's to say that we can't just do a reset for next year, where if you're looking at, year 1, 2, and 3, and you're looking at vehicles 1, 2, and 3, well, maybe you just move it by 1 year. So if you're expecting to get whatever vehicles for the next 3 years, you just move that off 1 extra year and you put this in the following year or something. So there's nothing that says that, well, you have to have those vehicles. This is city tax dollars. I think we need to be, as someone who is extremely frugal with my own dollars and even more so with taxpayer dollars. I mean, I know some people may say, well, what's $60,000 out of a $3.6 million budget. But at the end of the day, we've sat here long enough and scrimped and saved for $10,000 projects here and $5,000 projects there. And I honestly do not see a legitimate need. I personally have looked at the vehicle, and I have a fire chief who has told me more than once that it's in really good condition. And I'm like, okay, so why are we doing this? I still remember when Dan Wick came to us back in the mid 2000s and we had a Parks vehicle that you could see through the floorboards. Right, Dan? He's nodding yes. Now, I don't expect staff to be driving something like that, but this vehicle's in really good condition and we have a fantastic mechanic up at the shop. So, and I haven't heard anyone come from the shop and say, oh, we got to replace it. It's in poor condition, or we're throwing thousands of dollars down. If I had heard that, see, I have not heard that. Now, if I had heard that, I maybe changed my mind, but I can in good conscience go ahead and support a $60,000 purchase where I don't think it's been proven. Alder Knott.
So I think there's a very real risk if we are going to go down a path of we aren't going to replace emergency response vehicles until they're either obsolete or unserviceable. That would be too late in my mind. I do have a question, Chief. What is the year of that vehicle? I know you've told us that before, but if you could remind me, I've forgotten. Your manufacturer.
Yep, that was a 2008, so 15 years old next year. just going down the line, the rescue truck is gonna be 18 years. We have an older aerial ladder truck that's gonna be 19 years. And we have a reserve engine that's gonna be 15 years old next year.
I truly didn't remember what the age was, but the reason I asked that was because, yes, wear and tear and is connected to mileage, but it's also connected to age, and this is an old vehicle, so.
It is, and they're driven hard, just like a police car would be. Typically, we don't drive the speed limit when we're going to emergencies, so the vehicles are driven fairly hard. The other item I wanted to point out is you're gonna be at year one on the radio replacement, which is $80,000. So that you're gonna see in 2024 and 2025 to get all of our radios replaced. And also, as I talked about the rescue truck at numerous meetings with the same topic, the rescue truck will be definitely being replaced in the next year or two. So they're all just going to come in front of you again. And I've always said it's going to be your decision on which way you vote on it. Those I can do is just follow our plan and what I feel the best recommendation is for our emergency response.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, you're welcome.
I just want to follow up quickly, and then Amanda, what Aldernaut just said. I don't believe I ever intimated that I supported emergency vehicles, keeping them until they were unserviceable or obsolete. Amanda.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the written plan?
I'm sorry.
What is the vehicle replacement plan? Can somebody walk us through how many years typically, what the cycle is?
I'll try and answer. Chief can come up too, but the fire department does have a vehicle replacement plan that they have submitted each year to for the capital improvements budget. In that plan, they do outline future purchases as they go along. They typically will outline reasoning in that plan for replacement. I don't have the actual plan with me tonight, but the plan does outline a variety of things. That I will say the vehicle, I did not check with our lead mechanic, fleet supervisor before the meeting, but the vehicle is in good condition as it stands today. A lot of times what we see with city vehicles is they actually eat out from the underside out. The vehicle looked nice, but it actually had so much rust underneath it that's hard to replace components because it's constantly out in the salt environment during the winter time. We do maintain vehicles to a high level, service them, wash them, things like that. But I do go over the vehicle replacement plan with the fire chief when he submits it every year, go through it, look at what we think is prudent in that plan and try and bring it forward. So.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was just looking up because I have it on my desktop of my laptop. I'm guessing it's under, the plan is under the budget and not under equipment replacement, right?
I
Like the
believe
5-year
so.
plan? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's submitted with the capital improvement request.
Okay. But it would be under the budget for 2023, right? Or not?
No, it wouldn't be under the budget. It's usually submitted to Jared.
Oh.
It would be part of the capital improvement budget plan that he submits.
Oh, okay.
So we will take that plan and then incorporate that plan into the financial document that you see that comes in front of you for the 5-year financial plan.
So we have an amendment on the floor to remove item 42 and put that $60,000 towards the legacy project. Any further discussion on the amended motion? We'll do a roll if we could, please.
Stephen Knott,
No.
Leanne Stokes,
Yes.
Larry Jurassic,
No.
Diane Wolf,
Yes.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
No.
Your side.
So we have a 3-3 tie. We're back to this again. And
But I'm
so,
here tonight.
she say?
She says I'm
Here
It's here tonight.
Okay, and so we're turning to Mayor Kim if she chooses to break the tie.
Yep, I will vote no. I think it's really important. The Board of Public Works spends a lot of time going over the recommendations of the department. They take their job very seriously. It has representation from both the staff. It has council representation, and I sit on the Board of Public Works. And this capital improvement budget in its entirety passed unanimously through that board. And so I will vote with that board, which would be a no vote on this amendment.
Thank you. So it is the mayor cast a no vote to the amended motion. Any other amendments or discussion on the original motion to approve the 2023 capital improvements projects? Hearing none, let's do one more roll call vote. So the motion is to approve the 2023 capital improvement projects as per our packet this evening.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Stephen Knott,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Tom Smith,
Aye.
Diane Wolf,
Aye.
Larry
Regretfully.
Jurassic.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0 to pass the 2023 capital improvement projects. So let's see. Oh,
11B. Back to me again. All right, so item 11B, roundabout alternatives for PH and Theater Road intersection, including construction staging. And you have two options before you, provided the board by the engineers. Jared, did you want to say anything?
Just that, I'm gonna switch on my laptop again, just because we didn't have the options in the packet for the Board of Public Works. This got passed along to the council. Page number 56 that you see in your packet tonight is the compact roundabout, which you can see on the screen presently. This is a mountable center island and a smaller footprint. And then we also have the item number, page 57, which is a full-size roundabout, which has a vegetated green center island, bigger footprint, more impacts, a little better, different turning radius and different drivability for the citizens, the public that would drive through. Just going back to the Board of Public Works meeting, in the fact that from an engineering standpoint, both roundabouts will function at the intersection. They will move the traffic. Really no difference in safety. So staff's recommendation was to go with the compact roundabout due to the less impact and lower cost of construction.
The board also recommended the same. I'll make a motion that we approve the alternative one compact roundabout for PH and Theater Road intersections, including construction staging.
A second.
motion by Alder Knott, seconded by Alder Jurassic to approve
Compact roundabout.
compact roundabout for PH and Theater Road intersection. Discussion. Alder Jurassic,
Jared, both signs still have to be taken off of both the banks, even though the smaller one, correct?
The compact roundabout will not require either sign to be relocated.
Okay, so that saved 10,000.
That was included in the proposed budget in sheets that you have in your packet tonight.
Alder Knott,
Just for the record, one of the discussion points leading up to the approval of this was confirmation that emergency response vehicles, including the large fire department vehicles, would be able to easily navigate the compact roundabout.
thank you. Any other discussion? Alder Stevens.
So at Board of Public Works, I think I brought it up. The concern is, there was a concern with backup traffic heading, would that be southbound on Theater Road, but there's not a lot of space there between where the roundabout would be and the Highway 16 light. And I thought there was two things. We were going to go to like a 3-lane where there was a turning lane. And then the second thing that was suggested was that the light at Highway 16, you might be able to petition the state to have a longer like exit time. My experience is that I've seen cars back all the way up to the PH intersection with the roundabout. I think that could just be this cluster of cars that would be problematic. So that I think that 3rd lane would help a lot, especially if people are going into McDonald's on a left turn going in. And then that light sometimes is, I think it's like 8 to 10 seconds. It's not a long light. And I would feel better about the roundabout there if I thought that cars could exit more easily.
Jared.
Thank you. So at the meeting, we also discussed the 3-lane with the 2-way left turn lane will be north of the roundabout. So that'd be between Midwest Drive and PH. So as part of this, we're not proposing a lot of changes between the State Trunk Highway 16 and the roundabout at PH. I do agree the traffic, especially since a couple of things have happened in the last year and a half here. One of them is this, the DOT did a project on 16 to put new signal lights in. And as part of that, they changed around the signage at going on to 16. So now the right turn lane, the right-hand lane is also the right turn and through lane, where previously before that project, the through lane was the left turn lane, but the DOT had switched that as part of that project. So we've been monitoring that, and I agree that the traffic has been recently, I live out in that area, so I drive through there quite often. I haven't seen it backed up into the intersection, but it's getting close. But one of the things we can do if we see that is we can work with the DOT, which we do on other areas. We do that with other areas within the city and have done that in the past, is work with them on the timing of the signal on 16 to make sure we don't have that backup out on the roundabout. So I'm confident with the traffic. The consultant that we had designing this actually ran this through the computer system and modeled it all and made sure it was going to work, and that wasn't going to happen. They didn't see it happening, even with the traffic counts going up a few percentage points over the next 15 years. But obviously it'd be something we'd have to monitor. I think if it does back up in the roundabout, it would back up in the intersection. So I think you'd have gridlock either way, whether the roundabout was there or not. I do believe if it was backed up in the roundabout, it would be more confusing than the 4-way stop. But I think you'd still have gridlock at the intersection. So it would be something that we would want to address, whether the roundabout is there or the 4-way stop. We would want to address that either way. That sounds.
Alder Jurassic.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we're gonna hear about this project is you are still considering shutting down all lanes for construction, correct?
That is correct. The recommendation out of the Board of Public Works was to close the intersection and do a expedited time frame for construction. That was the direction from the Board of Public Works. We will move forward with the construction documents.
And that's basically for safety issues because the road is so narrow there. By making it one way, one lane, it'd be more hazardous staying workers there. So that's why the recommendation was made.
And Jared, about how much time?
So in the packet, we were estimating 6 to 8 weeks if we close the intersection. And it was 12 to 16 weeks, I think, if we actually did a staged construction. And the staged construction would only allow north-south traffic. We would still have to close it to the east-west traffic. So it would really only be open to a portion of it. But the part of the difficulty is, especially if we go with the compact roundabout, we're not buying as much right away. Part of the reason we're saving costs and not as much construction area in the fact that it gets really tight. So I think the construction workers, the construction equipment would be in a delicate situation if we had it open to traffic.
Thank you.
I was just going to clarify that very point, the 8 weeks.
Perfect. Any
Construction
other,
is 24, correct? Construction is 24.
It is slated for 2024, correct?
so we do have a motion on the floor, right?
Yes,
Yes.
approving the compact roundabout alternate for one.
I'm just so tired. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor said motion for approval for the compact, say aye.
Aye.
Was opposed, motion carries unanimously. Are we down to 13? Oh, praise the Lord.
12, that's good.
Yeah, that was so long ago, 3 hours ago.
And if those people were waiting.
Closed session, to consider a motion convene in closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent E of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session on Alaska school property, on Alaska School District property in French Valley, ASI Holding LLC property in French Valley, Sword Supervisory or Officers Relation Division Contract. To consider a motion to convene in closed session under section 19.85, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibilities, city administrator performance evaluation. If any action is required in open session as a result of the closed session, council will reconvene in open session to take the necessary action and or continue on with the printed agenda. Do I have a motion to go into close?
I move that we go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Alder Knott, second by Alder Jurassic to go in closed. Roll call.
Larry Jurassic,
Here.
Stephen Knott.
Aye.
Dan Stevens,
Aye.
Leanne Stokes,
Aye.
Tom Smith.
Aye.
Diane Wolf.
Aye. We are now going into closed. Amanda, are we going to take things in the order? I'm just thinking about people and stuff. We're going to take things in the order in which